Welcome back to another live stream. As you guys can see from the different setting, we have a lot of construction work going on in the house. It's why I've been like pushing the streams back. And I thought to myself, am I just going to not stream or should I just, concede and just do it in the bedroom? So that's where we are right now. But I hope everyone is doing good. Today we have another What's Trending in Fashion episode via live. We're talking about many different things. We're talking about Kering stocks and share price going down based on the appointment of Demna as the creative director of Gucci. We also have other news, the potential acquisition of Versace by Prada Group. We're also talking about Pretty Little Things rebrand, which I found really interesting. So many things to cover today, many things to cover. What is Charles saying? No, it's just Balenciaga next to your house constructing. That's funny. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. But anyway, to jump straight into it, without further ado, I think the first topic to really cover is the slumping of Kering shares. So as all of you know, and I covered it, it's good to see everyone's doing good. But anyway, I covered it before, right? And basically, Kering shares slumped when Demna was appointed as the creative director of Gucci, which shows that there isn't a lot of confidence, at least in the market, by the people that are shareholders, in the financial markets. There wasn't a lot of faith in the fact that Demna was actually the right candidate who could really bolster Gucci out of its financial issues. So there's a great quote from Imran Amed from BOF. He said, "The success of the new Gucci strategy rests on one critical question. Can Demna himself move his creativity forward? If Demna simply takes his Vetements and Balenciaga look and implements that at Gucci, it will not work." And that seems to be the question that has led to, a lot of people really questioning whether Demna is the right choice for Gucci. Whether he is or not, personally, I don't really know. I mean, I think that Demna is a super skilled designer. He's worked at many different brands, so I know he's capable of doing many different aesthetics. There are many designers who we thought were, one-trick ponies, and then they've gone to different brands and done something completely different that has been successful. So I don't put that past Demna. But it seems as though a lot of people in the financial markets don't believe that Demna can do that. So as you can see from the chart on the screen, the shares plunged by 12% after his appointment, which is insane. It just shows they're like, no. And it was interesting. BOF did this poll, right? And the question was, can Demna reassert Gucci's fashion authority? And only 10% said yes. That is really surprising to me. 27% said not sure, and a whopping 64% of people said that no, he cannot reassert Gucci's fashion authority. So there's lack of confidence from the general public, the customers. There's lack of confidence coming from the financial markets aside. So let's look at the Financial Times article, because they talk more about how the financial markets are reacting to this and kind of what their thoughts were on the whole thing. So as you can see via the Financial Times, Kering shares slump after Demna named Gucci's creative director. Former Balenciaga designer was appointed to turn around luxury group's biggest brand. Demna Versace, the Georgian-born designer, has been appointed creative director at Gucci, but shares in Kering fell 12% on Friday amid doubts about the luxury group's ability to reinvigorate the brand. Gucci's chief executive, Stefano Catino, and Francesca Bellatini, deputy CEO of Kering, said this week that Versace, who goes by the professional name Demna, had been the only choice for Kering after 10 years as creative director at Kering-owned Balenciaga. The decision was made without doubt, said Cantino, who worked for 2 decades at Prada and became Gucci's boss last summer. Demna is one of the best creative designers to interpret the contemporary culture. And we can stop there. I definitely agree in the sense that Demna is one of the few designers actually in the modern day that has really been able to, capture the zeitgeist in a way that I haven't really seen for a long time from a designer. That is definitely true. But will that same aesthetic or those same ideas work at Gucci is where everyone is asking the questions, and why that's reflected in all the polls and, reflected via the financial market. So I think, yes, he has been able to do that, but it's not appointing fashion creative directors is not that simple. He did well at that brand, so he's going to do well here. It's a bit more complicated than that. It has to be like a fit. The fit actually has to make sense. We're reading on. But Kering shares dropped in response to the announcement in early trading on Friday. Lucas Solka, a senior analyst at Bernstein covering global luxury goods, questioned whether Demna was up to the task. We are not sure that Demna is the right fit for Gucci at the moment, Solka said in a note, adding that the designer's bread and butter street style appeared to have fallen out of fashion. Now, guys in the chat, do you think that Demna's sort of streetwear, post-irony, contemporary consumption, is that falling out of favor? I think that maybe fashion critics are kind of getting tired of it, and at least people like me feel like he's not really asking any more questions. He's not pushing himself as a designer. And because I'm a Demna fan, I just want to see him push himself, which is why that last Balenciaga collection, for example, was extremely disappointing to me. But generally, I don't think that that's falling out of favor with customers and consumers. I don't really think so. I haven't seen per se Balenciaga sales slowing down under Demna, beside the scandal. But even with the scandal, things started creeping back up because they were able to keep their audience in Asia, and they kind of had good damage control in Asia, where it wasn't taken too seriously. It was taken more seriously in the West. And it was covered by Western news outlets. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that, it's falling out of favor generally, or is it not? Tosin says, with his audience, I don't think so, but overall, I would agree. I think he could keep doing it and get away with it. Yeah, I totally agree. Balenciaga hasn't had a hit product in a while. I'm not sure about that. I think Balenciaga has had quite a lot of hit products, especially with the footwear. I don't want to be a broken record, but they have. The steroid boots, how soon is that? But that's a hit. No, I think they've had loads of hits, especially in the accessories. They brought back the City bag. That was a hit. The Rodeo bag, really, I feel like only exploded last year. So that's a recent hit that they've had. I think they've had a lot of recent hits. If I started thinking about it, I think they have. Willie says, do they also own wine and champagne? Because same time Trump threatened 200% tariffs on French wine. Oh, you're talking about Kering. I'm actually trying to think, what wine companies does Kering own? LVMH definitely. Does Kering own wine? I'm trying to think. I don't think they do, I'm not sure. But I think they do. I think they do. I think they own some vineyards and let me Google it actually. Let me see. So apparently Artemis controls the vineyards. So yeah, it seems like they are invested in wine. So they might be affected by the Trump tariffs, it seems. Unfortunate for them. Let's see what else people are saying in the chat. Average people are mostly wearing Lululemon and streetwear, so I don't know if it's falling out of favor. Interesting. The youth that doesn't know any better are going to buy without any second thought, in my opinion. No, because you see that style being ubiquitous across fashion. It's not going away anytime soon, but to people who enjoy fashion and are critical, it's boring. Yeah. I never liked Demna's Balenciaga era. It was such an awful version of the same thing he was doing at Vetements, just with the Balenciaga style. It's popular, and that's why I lost it. Nah, I to be fair, I am a fan of Demna's Balenciaga, just not the recent stuff. I like the first, let's say, 10 collections. I thought they were sensational. But after a while, it just got crazy. But yeah, I don't personally think it was all awful. I will say that Balenciaga stores are typically empty when I see them when others are busy. Interesting. Yeah, with LVMH for sure. I mean, LVMH own they have Hennessy, for example. So we already know that they do. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Was he sent to die at Gucci? This is a perspective I've seen a lot of people talk about, where I've seen some conspiracy theory online where people are saying that they kind of wanted to get rid of Demna, so they're throwing him to the wolves with Gucci, knowing fully well that he won't succeed, and then they'll fire him after. I don't believe that. That's a crazy. I don't know where people got that idea from. Yeah, that's crazy. Like, these companies are not. Their head is on a stake if they're playing those kind of games with that amount of money, considering that the brand is already, well, the conglomerate in general, being Kering, is actually struggling financially. So no, they're not just doing that. They're not doing that. It's literally the silliest conspiracy theory I've seen online, to be honest. It's quite silly. But reading on the article, overall, we would give this appointment a 5 out of 10. That's crazy, he added. But we understand their risk minimization strategy, going for the well-known. The appointment, announced on Thursday, was a bold decision for a company trying to turn around its performance amid a downturn in the luxury goods sector. Gucci accounts for about half of group sales and 2/3 of profits at Kering. So once again, I know I say this all the time, but there's new people that, come to these streams every time. Balenciaga is nowhere near the size of Gucci. For some reason, people think that, why would he go to Gucci? Balenciaga is a bigger brand. No, it's not. Read the financial reports. Gucci accounts for about half of the group sales and 2/3 of the profits at Kering. So any of the money, any of the financial, success that Kering has is very closely tied to what goes on at Gucci, and that's it. It doesn't matter what the sales of irrelevant Balenciaga are if Gucci is not doing well. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. So let's read on. The brand sales declined 21% on a reported basis to 7.7 billion euros between 2023 and 2024, while operating income for the full year fell 51%. Oh my God, to 1.6 billion euros. Kering hopes Demna will revitalize Gucci following last month's departure of Sabato De Sarno, who had been its creative head for only 2 years. Demna will take up the role in July. Of course, I've mentioned this before, but we are also seeing Demna's last Balenciaga show in July, which will be a couture collection. So that should be interesting. The luxury group has been under pressure to find a named designer for Gucci after elevating De Sarno from Valentino, where he was an unknown studio head, in the top position. Jefferies analyst on Friday said the share price reaction probably reflected investor surprise at the appointment, adding speculation had been rife in fashion circles about the potential appointment of other designer heavyweights external to the group. Demna enjoyed phenomenal success at Balenciaga with an offering that spanned both couture and popular streetwear. Kering does not break out individual earnings, but under Demna, Balenciaga became the fastest growing brand in the portfolio. Among his best sellers were the giant platform Triple S sneakers, those went crazy, which sell for £825, and the sock-footed speed trainers. He also had considerable success with bags, including the Rodeo, which retails for more than $2,000, and Le City from the 2000s, which he revived last year. Yeah, I kind of alluded to that. I think when someone mentioned that he hasn't had, hit products in a while. Of course, the speed trainers and the Triple S's are like from a while ago, but the Rodeo is a bit more recent, and the City bag is more recent too. His tenure, however, has not been without controversy. Yeah, let's skip that because we know what happened with the controversy. We've kind of overcovered that. I think the reason why I wanted to read this article is really to see what the analysts have to say. Zuzana Push, an analyst at UBS, said, clearly the market was hoping for a high-profile external hire from another large fashion house. No one had expected that Kering would make an internal hire, especially not Demna. Wow, these analysts really don't believe in Demna. It's really insane. Like, they're just not feeling it at all. At all. They're really not feeling it. It's crazy, actually. It's really, really crazy. She added that the combination of that prior excitement and well-known controversy around Demna are seen as a disappointment to investors, which increases the risk of Gucci's ongoing turnaround. Kering this week brushed off the reputational risk associated with the appointment, insisting that new checks and training systems within the company meant that such crisis could not happen again. Oh my God. So they've already they've already put in checks and balances to make sure that Demna is not going to be on his weirdo shit, and to make sure that he doesn't do anything that could, be to the detriment of the branding of Gucci. That's hilarious. I feel like from now on, Demna is going to be babysat, especially when it comes to campaigns, because I feel like a lot of these companies are a bit concerned and scared with what Demna is going to do campaign-wise, so they have to have all these checks and balances, which is fair enough. I don't know why Balenciaga didn't have those before the scandal even happened. So it's good to see that luxury brands are learning from the mistake of one, because it's the same group. I mean, it's Kering. So they've learned from the internal happenings that would have happened at Balenciaga, and they are, of course, going to bring that to Gucci while Demna is there. But it's insane that they literally said, yeah, we have new checks and training systems to make sure that doesn't arise in Gucci. But reading on, Demna arrives at a brand sorely in need of a change in fortunes. Under Alessandro Michele, its creative director from 2015 to 2022, Gucci's revenues tripled to more than 10.5 billion euros. However, his successor Desano delivered only 6 collections before his departure was announced in February. Speaking to the Financial Times last month, Erwin Ramborg, global head of consumer and retail equity research at HSBC, estimated that it would take at least 3 years for even the most successful reset to deliver. Oh, so wow. So the financial analysts are essentially predicting that a minimum of 3 years is required for any sort of, financial revamp, which is hilarious, because one of the reasons they parted with Alessandro Michele was because they wanted him to kind of pivot more towards a Tom Ford mixed with quite luxury aesthetic, because they could see that that's what was trending, and there was a slight slowdown in luxury. What they didn't realize is that there was an overall slowdown in luxury. LVMH had issues, Kering had issues. The only group that really didn't have financial issues was Prada Group. They were the only group that seemed to weather the storm during a mainstream luxury downturn. So they parted ways, panicking, not considering that we literally just went through COVID and a whole pandemic where no company really had good performance anyway. And they jumped the gun, parted ways with Alessandro Michele, who literally brought them to 10.5 billion euros in revenue. And with Sabato De Sarno, it went down 21%. So let that be a lesson. Let that be a lesson to all these conglomerates and, these analysts for these conglomerates, that when you see an overall luxury downturn, you shouldn't panic, because it's more a sign of the overall luxury market, not that there was anything inherently wrong with Gucci or inherently wrong with, what Alessandro Michele was doing financially. So let that be a lesson. And I'm sure many other conglomerates and brands are definitely learning and have definitely learnt about from it, at least. Are you wearing a Balenciaga cap? Curious. Also, thoughts and prayers for Gucci. No, I'm not wearing a Balenciaga cap. I've actually never bought or owned anything from Balenciaga before, to be fair. But no, this is a Haven Court cap. Shout out to Keezy, but yeah, it's Haven Court. It's not Balenciaga. But all they care about is growth, growth, growth. I think also a lot of these conglomerates need to realize that continued growth into the sunset forever is not possible. It's literally impossible. Everything will stop growing at some point. It's literally just like mathematics. If every single member of the population is one of your customers, which can never happen, because part of the population are newborn kids and stuff like that. It's not like they're making money. So it just gets to a point where you literally exhaust every customer base, and then it will get to a point where you literally cannot make more money. So that means that there will always forever be a cap on how much money they can actually make. And the quicker they realize that, the better, because they have this thing where shares always need to increase. We always need to grow forever. It's mathematically impossible for you to continue growing forever. It's literally impossible. Like the numbers, suggest that is not possible. So at some point, things will come down, which is why, in my opinion, I think that these conglomerates always need to make decisions that, are good for the health of the conglomerate in the long term. But I see a lot, especially with Kering recently, everything seems to be a short-term decision. And I think that's their biggest issue. Everything is too short-term, what's happening now, and all those kind of things, to be honest. So yeah. Could have been Eddie Salmon doing Gucci. See how he did Celine. Profit speaks. Too bad 10% of cheering Demna to Gucci must be Pinot family. Demna being at Gucci shows Kering still hold grudges of Eddie. Yeah, I mean, also there's many reasons why Eddie Salmon wouldn't go there. I thought he would go there because I obviously made my video about why I think he's the best fit for Gucci, and I still believe that. I think Eddie Salmon is a way better fit than Demna, like night and day, because Adi Simon can sell more things than clothes, whereas Demna hasn't proven to me that he can do that. Like Adi Simon literally revamps whole fragrance lines. He did that at Dior. Dior Privé is still one of the most celebrated, private lines for a luxury brand. He did that at Celine. Gucci, their fragrance line, no one really cares. Adi Simon could really come in and change the fragrance line. And I mean, fragrances and beauty in general makes bucket loads of money for companies. Demna hasn't shown or proven to me in any regard that he can sell, beauty products at scale. So, and this is like big boy group stuff. This is not, once again, Balenciaga is tiny. Adi Simon has done this at brands that are bigger. He's done it at, the likes of YSL. He's done it at Dior. Even Celine, they had insane growth when Adi Simon was there, even though it wasn't one of the, huge LVMH brands. He turned it into one. And I've talked about the financial performance under Adi Simon at Celine. So financially, branding-wise, selling-wise, commerce-wise, marketing-wise, Adi Simon is just way better than Demna for a big house like Gucci. The only thing is that obviously they had the lawsuits. He sued Kering twice and won, rightfully so. And I've talked about the details of those lawsuits in the past. So there could be a grudge there. And then also, Adi Simon himself has said that he mainly only wants to design for French brands, which is why he's only designed at French brands, right? The Celines, the YSLs, So it makes sense. The Dior's, it makes sense. But I thought that Adi Simon, if you throw enough money, like if the deal is right, he might change his mind on that. But clearly not. Clearly not. But yeah, I just don't think that, Demna can do all of that. Like, Demna is not a all-in-one package the way that Eddie Simon is, basically. Which is why I just don't think that he's a good enough candidate for a brand like the only thing that I know Demna can sell is ready-to-wear. But ready-to-wear doesn't make the most money for most brands, which is why Balenciaga, even though this is actually the reason why people think that Balenciaga is bigger than Gucci, because Balenciaga sells so much ready-to-wear, but ready-to-wear doesn't move the needle financially, which is why Balenciaga will never make close to the amount of money that Gucci does, because Gucci exists in so many different product segments, right? So, and I just don't, there's no track record of, there's no track record of Demna being able to do that. Not saying that he can't, but the track record isn't there the way it is with Adi Simon, which is why I thought he would be a better candidate. Willie said, I'm old enough to remember what the reaction was when Martin Margiela did Hermes. Looking back, it was his best work. To be fair, Willie, I know you would have been there. Like, you would have seen all the reactions. That was slightly before my time. However, obviously, I just look at stuff in hindsight and I'm like, yeah, Margiela Hermes was amazing. Of course, I have the book, the Hermes years. But that's interesting that there was a bad reaction to Martin going to Hermes. Probably the same as what was something kind of what I remember is when Raf Simons was going to Jill Sander. The reason why there was such a bad reaction to Raf Simons going to Jill Sander was because he was known as the guy that made menswear that was cool and the youth really liked it, and it was inspired by, a lot of the British bands and youth subcultures. That was like early Raf Simons work. And how is this guy going to design elegant women's wear at Jill Sander? Like, he had no track record at that point in time of designing women's wear to any high level. But I loved Raf Simons at Jill Sander. I thought that was amazing. But kind of similar to what you're saying with Margiela Hermes. Ras Simmons at Jill Sander, it was seen that same way. It's like he can't design women's wear. All he does is design all this youth subculture menswear for like really cool young kids and young boys. But how do we know that he can, design women's wear? And he totally proved everyone wrong. And that's why I think actually that tenure is the reason why Ras Simmons is as well respected as he is, because he kind of silenced all the critics that used to say that he couldn't design women's wear. So yeah, makes sense. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. I'm kind of going on a fashion history tangent right now. So yeah, but yeah, that's kind of the story around the whole Kering shares slumping. But I'm looking forward to what Demna does. I wish him all the best. I don't actually wish for any designers to not do well. So I wish Demna all the best as a fan of his. And I'm curious to see exactly what he does and to see if he really can save Gucci from its issues. So yeah, next story, guys. This is a funny one. I'm actually covering this because people were on my neck about me covering this. I don't normally really talk about fast fashion apart from when I'm bashing it. This is another example of that. But Pretty Little Thing is having a rebrand, which I find absolutely comical, guys. I think it's the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So for people that don't know, if you don't know for whatever reason, Pretty Little Thing is a very big fast fashion brand. And they have recently decided that they are going to hop on the quiet luxury trend, and they completely rebranded. So they kind of cleared their Instagram, as you can see. They have this sort of burgundy color, legacy in progress. They have curated these kind of looks that are an ode to sort of a old money aesthetic, quiet luxury look. They've got a Pretty Little Thing emblem that kind of looks like the equestrian night design that Burberry has, kind of a ripoff of that. A terrible looking one at that, by the way. So Pretty Little Thing has decided for some reason that they can actually be luxury, which is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, to be honest. And they have a whole thing on their Instagram where they're talking about their story, and they have sort of a statement mission that they've kind of highlighted. So we're going to read this because I think this is so funny. So let's read it. A legacy in progress. Allow us to reintroduce you to Pretty Little Thing, the generation-defining style source for every kind of it girl. First of all, there's nothing about Pretty Little Thing that is generation-defining. First of all, let's read on. With the belief that elevated fashion essentials should be available to all. What about Pretty Little Thing is elevated? I'm so confused. Elevated fashion essentials should be available to all. When I think of Pretty Little Thing, I don't think of elevated for 1 second. There's nothing about Pretty Little Thing that is elevated. Let's see what else they say. From the classic and timeless to the contemporary and cutting edge, designed with you in mind. Let's break that down once again. Classic and timeless. Guys, people buy Pretty Little Thing because it's cheap and the garments last like 1 to 10 wears most of the time. Not every time, but most of the time. People buy Pretty Little Thing when they want to wear a dress at like a party or an event that they're probably only going to wear once. There's absolutely nothing classic or timeless about that. Whoever wrote this needs to learn how to use the English language and actually learn what English words mean, because Pretty Little Thing is literally the antithesis of what classic and timeless represent and what they mean from a dictionary standpoint. So that to me is the dumbest thing that Pretty Little Thing could put in a press release. It literally makes no sense. But reading on. Our icon, the unicorn, because we cater to the individual. No two people or wardrobe should ever be the same. This is the next era of Pretty Little Thing, and we are excited to have you here with us. Interesting. Let's see the next slide. So once again, they have another logo, this sort of PLT sort of thing that they're turning into a crest. And then they have their story once again. The style source for every kind of it girl. Let's see what they have to say here. This is going to be more comical statements. Claiming authority and credibility. What is credible about Pretty? Who wrote this? Who wrote this? Who? Credibility. There is absolutely nothing credible about Pretty Little Thing. When I think of Pretty Little Thing, I think of the Leicester factory scandal. For people that don't know, let me see if I can get it on the screen. So there was a time that £1 billion of Boohoo's value was wiped because it was found during COVID that, during COVID, there were COVID laws that meant that, certain people had to social distance. Meanwhile, a lot of the Boohoo factories in Leicester were illegally running. On top of them illegally running and breaking COVID laws, it was found that they were paying people less than half of minimum wage in the factory. And there was also, reports of exploitation. And the funny thing is, there was a statement that they made where they basically said that we didn't actually know. We it's hard for us to have a hold. Yeah, Boohoo owns Pretty Little Thing, by the way, for people that don't know. But they were like, it's hard for us to keep a tab on our supply chain, and it's very hard for us to, know who our suppliers are. The company said, in a statement that we're not sure who are supplying all of our garments. I don't know why they always think that that's a valid excuse. Like, oh, we don't know who's supplying our garments. If anything, it makes you look worse. It means you don't even have a hold of how your company runs, which means that you can't talk about sustainability because you don't even know anything that's going on at your company. So it's actually worse. I don't know why every brand, when stuff like this happens, they're like, yeah, we didn't even know that our supply chain, we just don't even know anything that's going on. It's hilarious, right? But anyway, so when I think of Pretty Little Thing, because they said credible in their press release, there's absolutely nothing credible about Pretty Little Thing. They lie about sustainability practices. They exploit their workers. They pay people less than minimum wage. They break the law. They steal other designers' work. Credible? That's insane. But let's read on, guys. Apparently they claim authority and credibility. Apparently, let's read on. Elevating our fashion point of view. If we are a style source, it means committing to being on the cutting edge of the trends. Well, the only reason why Pretty Little Thing is on the cutting edge of the trends is because they copy other people. But moving on, it means committing to curating, editorializing, and playing in culture and being every it girl's secret. A little if you know, you know. There is nothing about Pretty Little Thing that is if you know, you know. There is literally nothing about Pretty Little Thing that is if you know, you know. Like, I don't know where they got that. All the girls are here. All the girls should not be there. If I'm going to be very honest with you, all the girls definitely shouldn't be there. So yeah, a lot of people wanted me to cover this sort of Pretty Little Thing rebrand. So I did kind of look into it. Something that I found interesting off the get-go, that I kind of noticed immediately, was how they changed their font. I don't know why they changed this sort of like, let me see if I can put on the screen the previous font of Pretty Little Thing. So you can see it was kind of more like blocky. This was how it used to look. And then they changed it to this sort of, italic sort of font. Do they think that, italic fonts are more luxe? Is that what they think? Is that what they are going for? Interesting. So something I really want to do, since, Pretty Little Thing has had a rebrand, is I want to look on their website and see if they have changed, the fabrics they are using. The reason why this is important is one of the big reasons I think that Pretty Little Thing rebranded, from the research I was doing, is I think that a lot of these fast fashion brands are struggling with Temu. Like, they're struggling to compete with the likes of Shein, with Temu, a lot of these like Chinese companies. So they're pivoting and seeing if they can charge a higher price, knowing fully well that they can't sell as much as Shein and they're not going to grow as quickly as Shein. So if they can sell their products for a higher price, then maybe that's how they can, keep up with the market. However, this is why, and this is the reason why we need to talk about fashion in a more critical way, rather than the whole "it's just clothes, bro." Because what happens when you talk about clothing in a reductive way is brands feel like they can just start calling their crappy made clothes elevated basics and, timeless craftsmanship. And the customers eat it up because they don't know any better, because no one actually, has conversations around what quality is, what quality means, why you shouldn't be buying any of these kind of brands that are charging you £200-300 for a piece. It's literally comical. And it's just a big issue. But that's why I think they're rebranding. I think they are trying their best to keep up with a lot of the Chinese brands by increasing the price point. But I'm curious to see, you know, how exactly this looks. Even these their pieces, this is what they're going with for their quite luxury look. Let's see. Even the models, the color palette, because Pretty Little Thing used to be really, really colorful. Now they're going with muted tones, white, beige, brown, black, navy. So I find it quite interesting that this is the direction that they're going in. Let's have a look, guys. Let's see what fabrics we're working with right now. Since everything now is about craftsmanship, let's see. First of all, the shape of this looks absolutely comical. Let's see. Straight to fabric and care. 95% polyester, 5% spandex, lining 100% polyester. So basically, it's a plastic dress. Amazing. Let's see. Let me sort by high. Let's see what the highest price is. And let's see if the highest price, at least we get some better fabrics. Come on, let's see. Let's see, guys. Okay, so the most expensive thing right now, £87 on sale for 135. Let's see what fabrics, guys. Is it just another piece of plastic? Oh, yes, it's another piece of plastic. Main body 100% nylon, padding 100% polyester, faux fur 100% polyester, lining 100% polyester. So basically, everything they make is a whole bunch of plastic. That's basically the only thing you can find on this website. Everything is plastic. Oh, amazing. They are calling this a grey oversized wool look trench coat. What the hell is a wool look? It's either wool or it's not. Wool look is the dumbest thing I've ever read in 2025. Wool look. Let's see. Let's see. A whole bunch of plastic. Once again, drum roll, please. 100% polyester. 100% polyester, guys. This is absolutely hilarious. Wool look is the funniest thing I've ever seen. First of all, the fabric looks absolutely atrocious. Even in pictures, it looks bad. Normally, even if a fabric is bad, if you have good photographers, you can make it look good, but in this case, the fabric is so terrible, it looks bad even in pictures. That's actually quite comical. This looks horrible. This looks so bad. Like, this might be the worst coat I've seen this year, honestly. This looks so bad. Wool look trench coat. We've reached a new low in fashion, guys. We've actually reached a new low. 100% polyester. Is there anything that isn't plastic? At least one thing. One thing. Let me have a look at something that maybe just looks like it isn't made out of polyester. Let's see. Textured mini dress. Imagine, guys, 100% polyester once again. 100% polyester. These are guys that said in their statement that, you know, it's about timeless fashion and it's, you know, let me actually read it word for word. I don't want to paraphrase. Let's use their words, guys. So they said, with the belief that elevated fashion essentials should be available to all. I don't know what they mean by elevated. Maybe elevated plastics. I think the first thing they need to elevate is their supply chain. I think that's the first thing they need to elevate. Let's see what else they said. Defining style source for every kind of it girl. Claiming authority and credibility. So, guys, do we think that they are claiming authority and credibility by having a brand where everything is made out of plastic? It's literally just a plastic brand. Like, that's crazy. What polyester farm do they source from? Polyester farm is actually crazy. Imagine, like, you could actually, like, people used to grow polyester out of a plant. That's hilarious, but yeah. That's funny. Let me have a look. I'm on a mission to find something on their website that isn't plastic. Let's see. Imagine having a hard time finding something that isn't plastic on a website. That's a new low. I don't think I've ever had that before. 100% polyester once again. Good Lord. Everything is polyester. Literally everything. Let's see. Satin lapel blazer dress. Let's see. Fabric and care, 100% polyester. Oh my God. Like, I know Pretty Little Thing is bad, but wow. Genuinely, everything is polyester. No way. Okay, denim. Denim. Come on. Come on, guys. At least some cotton. Come on. Oh my God. 73% polyester, 22% rayon, 5% elastane. They couldn't even. Oh my days. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That is actually crazy. That is the craziest thing I've seen this whole year. That's actually mad. Yeah, not even the denim. Not even the denim. I like that as a name. Pretty Little Microplastics. I love that. That is very accurate to what this brand is. What about the accessories? Let's have a look, actually. That's a good question. I think all of us are very curious to see kind of what the accessories are made out of. Okay, let's see. Hoop earrings. Let's see. Material. I mean, they are cheap. So in this case, 90% zinc, 10% iron. Those are the kind of earrings that are going to turn green on your ears. Like, first of all, the gold whatever plating they've used is going to wear off, and then it's going to start making your ears go green. That's one of those kind of things. The weird thing is, I don't actually understand why anyone buys jewelry from these kind of brands, if I'm being honest. If I want really nice, cheap jewelry, I'm going to go to a market in London, like Brick Lane or somewhere, and go to one of those stores where they sell like 95 sterling silver jewelry for the same price. And it's 925 sterling silver, so it's going to last quite a long time. I don't understand who the target audience is for this kind of stuff in the first place. I really don't understand. Low-key, I unfortunately don't think most customers care about if quality actually changes. Newcomer will buy into the marketing on face value and view it as better regardless of whether it is. But what scares me is, for these prices, obviously I know that some people don't want to wear things secondhand, which I think is not a good thing, by the way. There's nothing wrong with secondhand clothing. But anyway, for the price of £45 to buy this 100% polyester, you could literally go on eBay and buy like a Yoji dress for the same price, like on auction. That's made with like 100% wool or something like really nice, right? I don't get, like, I just when I see stuff like this, I'm just like, why does anyone buy this stuff? I just don't get it. You are forgetting there are people who are dirt poor, not savvy, like paying with Klarna. I want to look like they have enough money to keep up with the current trends above all else. So I've talked about the price thing before. I'll say it once and I'll say it again. I don't think it has anything to do with affordability, because once again, I compare it to when I lived in my village in Nigeria. Most people in my village in Nigeria don't have access to internet, so none of these people are ordering stuff online. People who order stuff online, it means you already have access to internet. It means you can order other things online, and at that point there's no excuse, because the same way that you order Pretty Little Thing online is the same way that you could buy better quality pieces on Depop or The Real or on eBay that are better made, better quality, better fabrics for sometimes even cheaper than some of these prices. There are also other fast fashion brands that sell cheap things, but the quality is higher. Think of the likes of, Uniqlo or COS on sale. Sometimes COS does insane sales where the prices actually become comparable, or even Arquette. The prices become comparable to, Pretty Little Thing. So the price thing, I never ever take that argument seriously. It's not a personal attack, L, by the way. It's more like a general thing that I see where people are like, oh, I can't afford it. I can't afford more expensive clothes. It's like, no, that's not a valid excuse. I lived in a village where no one had internet access. So I'm not the person that you can tell stuff like that to. I'm not like a millionaire son. I'm not coming from that perspective. I think it's a lousy excuse. The whole like, oh, we can't afford any better. I think that's just a very lousy excuse. I always think it's a lousy excuse so that people can people that want to overconsume, it's an excuse that they use so that they can overconsume. Personally, that's what I think. What's crazy, I think, is the market of brands money on Instagram that have comparable quality to this garbage, but mark up the price like crazy. That's true. That's definitely true, to be fair. It definitely is laziness. That to me is the biggest issue, I think, more so than anything else. I know people who would wear this, and I'd say more than cost. Most people don't know Depop or Uniqlo exist. I mean, how can you not know that Uniqlo exists though? Like in the UK, for example, where because Pretty Little Thing is a huge brand in the UK, it's mainly UK based. So Pretty Little Thing, we're specifically talking about the UK where I live. There are massive Uniqlo stores all over the UK, especially in London, where most people are actually over consuming these Pretty Little Thing dresses, right? So how can you not know what Uniqlo is when Uniqlo is in all the major shopping malls? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, how can you not know that? I don't know if I buy that people don't know that Uniqlo exists. I don't really know if I buy that. You guys are going crazy in the comments. Okay, Elle says, it is lousy to be fair. I've worked with a lot of people who are borderline homeless. They love Pretty Little Thing, Boohoo, and Shein because it's all they really care to think about. They are not bothered. Yeah, but that means that that's all they care to think about. It doesn't mean that they can't afford alternatives. Because the same £30 that they spend on a PLT dress, I could be like, if I whip up Depop right now, I could get 2 pieces that look similar to that dress and they're made with better fabrics. So it's not a price thing. I just, anytime people say the affordability thing, I push back against it strongly. It's not about price. If we can have a conversation around, you know, people being a bit lazy to learn or people just not knowing, but it's not about affordability, in my opinion. It's definitely not about affordability. Not everyone lives near a major shopping mall. Yeah, but Pretty Little Thing, once again, if you say that not everyone lives near a major shopping mall, you need to remember that Pretty Little Thing is an online brand for the most part. So the same way that you order Pretty Little Thing online is the same way you can order a bunch of other things. So the internet is a very big place. You can't just tell me the only place that you know to buy, you know, cheaper clothing is Pretty Little Thing. I don't know. I question that. I think that's really questionable, to be honest. I think that's very, very questionable. Because if you're ordering online, that's even worse because that means you have the whole internet to your disposal in terms of places that you can order from. So yeah, I don't know. Either I just find that every rebuttal against buying these like ultra really cheap plasticky clothes is always really bad. It's the points are always bad. Like I have a response for it almost immediately. People are suffering from cognitive dissonance. You're not wrong. Boohoo, Shein, I made their name on Costo, so people just check them. I think if anything, all it shows is that it's the marketing machine. It's the marketing machine of all these kind of, you know, garments. It's a big marketing machine. You can't return items that don't fit you on Depop or eBay, and Uniqlo doesn't have trendy pieces that those people want. So you can, not necessarily on Depop or eBay, but there are secondhand places that you can there are secondhand stores online that you can return stuff to for sure. So once again, specifically Depop and eBay, maybe you can't. In some cases, you will be able to if the seller is like that nice. Most times, probably not, but there are literally secondhand platforms that you can. So once again, I feel like it's just what I seem to see a lot of times is it's just excuses. It's like if you want to overconsume, fair enough, but just say that that's what you want to do. Don't try and, you know, frame it as, oh, but it's just physically impossible to find anything else on the big world wide web. Like what? Like these are people that buy a dress once and then never wear it again. Do you know how many of my friends, how many of my friends, especially like, I don't know, because a lot of these are marketed towards women, especially like the Pretty Little Thing brand, obviously, is marketed towards women. Do you know how many of my friends, right, especially like growing up, had just closets full of clothes? And it's like, every time they're like, Ayo, you're into fashion, like, what should I wear? And I'm like, your closet is literally full of heaps of clothing. Why do you ask me what you need to wear? You have loads of clothes. They're like, but I just don't wear any of that stuff. And it's like, so why do you own it? I feel like a lot of people in the West think it's their like right to overconsume, which it is. Like there's no law stopping you from overconsuming. But at the same time, they want to act like it isn't what it is. They want to behave as if they aren't overconsuming. It's just, they're just prisoners of their own circumstance. It's like, no, you just overconsume and you're wasteful with the way that you treat clothing. That's all. That's all it is. This is my biggest cultural shock living in Europe. They're so comfortable with overconsumption. Where we come from, people buy clothes one time every 2 or 3 years. Yeah, exactly. Which is why these arguments always fall flat to someone like me. Because, guys, I grew up in Nigeria, in an African country. And part of when I was there, like I always say, I lived in my village for 2 years. No one consumes like that. So if you're talking to me, I always see people in the West as a bit like spoiled, where like, we need to buy 50 dresses a year. Like you just sound crazy. Like you don't need to consume that much. And if you're fighting for your right to consume, that's fine. But if I accuse you of over consuming or buying plastics, you shouldn't be offended by that. I just think it's like it's just this weird, like, how dare you critique the fact that we buy 50 plastic dresses every year? No, I just don't agree with any of it, to be honest. I don't agree with it. What's living in a village like? That's a quick side note. That's a sidebar. Let's go into this sidebar quickly. You can ask me quick questions before you can ask me specific questions as to what my experience was living in the village, and I can give you specific answers. So yeah, we can do that. What specific question do you have, Luke? So I can tell you what it was like. What I will tell you is, one, I had no internet access. Two, there were times when there was no electricity for really long periods. So electricity, most times we would have electricity maybe for a few hours a day, sometimes for a few hours every couple of days. But sometimes, because it's a village and the equipment is terrible, the transformer that supplies electricity to the street would blow up. And when it blows up, it's a village, so we don't have a lot of infrastructure to fix a transformer. So sometimes if a transformer blows up, it takes like months to fix the transformer. So we would just have no electricity for months. So we would literally have, like, I remember when I was young, we would read books, right, with lanterns. We would use like kerosene lanterns, which is terrible because when you burn kerosene, the smell is pungent. It's like really disgusting. And over time, it kind of like, it messes up your respiratory system also, which is why you shouldn't use like those kerosene lanterns all the time. You're literally like inhaling fumes. So that's what it was like. I also think it was kind of fun in terms of a childhood because obviously I grew up in London, right? And then I moved to Nigeria. So I was used to like city living, electricity all the time, all that sort of stuff. But very quickly, your mindset changes and then you find value in different things. So when I was younger, and this might be a reason why people tell me I'm always really mature for my age. When I was younger, I would read a lot of books because there was basically nothing else to do. I mean, there's no electricity, no internet access, no games, barely any TV. The TV that we did have, there were barely any channels. There were actually very specific channels. So we had the news channels, we had Nat Geo Wild. So people are always confused why I know so many things about animals. We had 3 channels: the Nigerian news, international news, and Nat Geo Wild, and that was it. So it's either I learn about animals, I look at the international news, or I look at the local news. And that's when we even had electricity, by the way. So that was that. There were so many other like culture shock things, right? Because it's not civilized like the West. This is not the city in Nigeria, civilized, obviously, but I'm talking about when I was in the village in Nigeria. In the village, you don't go to like grocery stores and buy groceries. So I remember one time when I first moved to my village, um, on my grandma's farmland, there was this goat. And me being this English kid, I was like, oh, that's so fun. You guys have like a pet goat. That's so cool. And I was feeding, because on the farm, we used to grow different things like cacao. We used to grow bananas. We used to grow plantain. We used to grow pineapples. What else did we grow? Oranges, cashews. And that was how we used to make a lot of money. We used to sell a lot of our cashews actually from the trees. So anyway, I used to feed the goat banana leaves. And then one second, then I was just like chilling in the house one time. And then I heard like animal screams. And I was like, why is the goat screaming? And I ran outside and they were chopping the goat's head off. And I was like, why are you chopping the goat's head off? Like, that's the pet. And they were like, you thought the goat was a pet. Like, all the guys were laughing at me. Like, you thought this was a pet. Like, what else do you think we're going to eat? And they chopped the head off. And that was so traumatizing because, like, when animals are killed, like when you chop their head off, all their blood goes everywhere. And the spasms of their muscles mean that they run everywhere. So I had like loads of crazy experiences like that. I also got really sick when I was in the village because obviously in the UK, it's a cold place. So there aren't too many like diseases, but in a tropical country like Nigeria, the temperature allows, like tropical weather allows for a lot of diseases to, live and thrive. So when I was in Nigeria, I got malaria like 10 times. I got cholera like once, typhoid once. That's why I don't get sick most times. People are like, why is your immune system so strong? It's like, because I went to Nigeria and I got all the diseases under the sun. My white blood cells were working overtime. So now that I'm back in the UK, I just have no allergies, barely sick. Like, it takes a lot for me to be sick. I was sick recently, actually, but before then I hadn't been ill in years. So that was also another funny experience, just like being sick all the time. That definitely happened. But I don't know. It's kind of, I think your mentality changes. You just get used to it. Even though it's like kind of crazy, I guess the people watching this will be crazy. Like, oh my God, no internet. Animals are being killed for food. You're growing your own like food on this farmland and all this stuff. It's like culture shock, yes, but I got used to it over time. But it was just weird. It was just weird. It was definitely a big culture shock. But then after 2 years, I did go from the village in Nigeria to the city, and then it was just like London, basically, like a tropical version of London. People are driving expensive cars. Some people don't have expensive cars. There's a working class, there's a middle class, there's an upper class. There's people that have yachts. There's people that have mansions. That's how the city is in Nigeria. But obviously, the village is a village. So yeah, massive culture shock. So yeah, when people are like, oh, you don't get blah, 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 blah. I'm like, bro, I lived in a village in Nigeria. I'd like to see you do that. Like in my village also, remember, there's no washing machines or anything like that. So I had to learn how to hand wash clothing, which some people might even hand wash their clothes now, but it's different because remember, Nigeria is a tropical country. And a lot of us wear a lot of bright colors or white because it's so damn hot. And washing white in a tropical country by hand is tough. It's a skill that you have to learn over time. And then also learning to wash different materials by hands is also hard. Like how to hand wash denim that's really thick and you have to really like scrub with your arms. We weren't using washing machines like you poshies. We were washing our clothes with our hands, guys. So that was definitely a thing also. So just all those like cultural shocks that I went through. So that was basically what it was like living in a village. If you have any other questions, I can answer them. But that's kind of like my general overview on a village life in Nigeria, what it was like. It's like me playing with a bunny, and one day after dinner, when I wanted to play again with the bunny, everyone was laughing at me. Oh my God. So funny story. One time for my birthday, right? When I was still in my village, my grandma bought me a chicken for my birthday because I like eating chicken. Like my favorite meat to eat is chicken. But obviously I'm thinking about it now in hindsight, but as a kid I was like, oh, still being naive even after what happened with the goat happened. I was like, oh my god, my grandma bought me like a pet chicken. That's so nice of her. And then same story. Next thing, some guy comes with a massive huge knife, huge machete. And I was like, where is he going with that machete? And I'm sure you guys know what happened. There was another headless chicken running around. And then that chicken became the dinner that night, which was insane. So I feel like in the UK, especially, you're insulated to like, you just see stuff in grocery stores. You're insulated into how they come to that. But seeing like animals get killed is actually quite insane. Like how they're struggling for life. And you can even see that like goats, for example, when a man is going at the goat with a machete, they're literally screaming. You can see that they know they're about to get killed and stuff. And you can see the stress on their face. So it's mad. It's wild. It's insane. It's actually insane. Cole said I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I just thought it was a pet chicken. That's what I thought. Oh my god, Luke said, and that headless chicken became Kering. Oh my gosh. Do you think any of that affected how you see pet animals? I guess partially because so I understand why people are very, passionate about like animal cruelty and also like how animals are treated and stuff like that. It makes a lot of sense. Like I just said, you can literally see the pain on the animals' faces when they're about to be, killed. However, I also do think that there's a level of privilege when you're in the West and you have so many resources that you can avoid eating things like meat. Because somewhere like my village, for example, people are so poor that the only way you survive is by just eating what's available to you. So if bananas are in season, I guess we're eating bananas because that's what's available. If there are animals, then that's what we're eating. We're eating meat because that's what's available. If, it's plantain season or pineapple season, whatever it is, right? That's what you eat. So I think there is a huge level of privilege to be like, you shouldn't eat this or you shouldn't eat that, because it's like, okay, how about we just, take you from where you are in the West and we just plant you in my village, and there are no grocery stores, there's none of your vegan whatever, you can't have your fancy vegan diet, else you die because you have no nutrients. Obviously you have no access to all your fancy supplements that you normally have to make up for your maybe iron deficiency or something like that because you're not eating meat, and let's see how you survive. So I do think that there's definitely like a level of privilege that comes with it, but I can understand like both sides of the argument, if that makes sense. But yeah, I get it. Goats and chickens equals love. Someone said vegans in the West comparing eating chicken to the Holocaust is a type of insanity that will drive anyone crazy. Okay, I don't think I've ever seen someone compare it to that. I don't think I've ever seen that, to be honest. Yeah. I think it is a different level of cruelty between one goat growing outside with love and care and the animals that are mass slaughtered and never see the sun. Yeah, that is also true because, like in Nigeria, well, not in Nigeria in total, but at least in my village, it's not like the animals do live a good life in that sense. Like they're not cramped into like one room. They're normally allowed to roam freely on farmlands, and they roam all over the place, and they run around and they play about a lot. So that it's not particularly the same, where in the West they're just in these massive slaughterhouses and they don't have space. Like chickens are literally like cramped on each other. It's like insane, right? It's really, really insane. It said, OMG, you're protected from the militant vegans then. I went to a vegan festival and there was a booth calling commercial fishing slavery. I've never seen that either. I don't. The only argument I've seen is when people say it's like inhumane to eat animals, to which my response is, try living in my village and see if you still have that opinion when that's the only thing available for you to eat. So I do think there's definitely a level of privilege in speaking that way. However, I get it. I get it. Like, I understand why people care about the well-being of animals. I do too. And it was traumatizing to see, animals be beheaded in front of me. That was insane, especially for the first time. Not the pet chicken giving me flashbacks to childhood in Mexico. I'm very sure they do, because in like more rural society, that's just kind of what happens. It could be Nigeria, it could be Mexico, it could be anywhere. It's probably a similar experience. I'm very sure, like, living in a village in Mexico is probably the same as living in a village in Nigeria. It's probably the same lifestyle. Probably. You guys are killing me in the chat. See what I mean? Had the same headless chicken experience in Romania. I think, yeah, if you grow up in a rural area, you'll probably see stuff like that. Those videos showing animal cruelty and cruel animal death do work though. I was put off red meat for a minute after a vegan festival. Yeah, so me personally, I only eat meat that's like grown or like reared a certain way and like killed a certain way. So I only eat meat from certain like suppliers. But because doing that makes the meat more expensive, it also means that I have to eat less meat because I can't afford to eat more meat buying that kind of meat, right? So that's kind of what I've done. But it's still hard. Eating that kind of meat is expensive, so I get it. I get it. But anyway, any more questions about village living before we continue the fashion stream? People are saying they've seen people compare it to slavery. I have not seen that before. I genuinely have not seen any of that conversation. I haven't. Luke says you're welcome for the tangent. I don't mind going on the tangent. I haven't streamed for a while, so I can go on different tangents today. It's fine. And plus, I'm gonna have timestamps anyway, so it's all good, guys. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. I love the side quest. That's a more like, IR law for you guys. I feel like I've never actually talked about my upbringing really in I've talked about it in past. Like I've spoken on one live stream as to why I even went to Nigeria in the first place. I've definitely said that. But I don't think I've talked about my experience in the village, which is now the first time. I don't think I've talked about my experience, what it was like then going from the village in Nigeria to the city. So it's quite crazy. I feel like I've lived like 10 lives or something. It's insane. I also went to like, this is another like crazy stat. I've been to more than 12 schools in my lifetime because I moved so much from like city to village to town so I went to like 12 different, more than 12 different schools if I counted it. It felt like every 2 years I was in a new school, sometimes every year. So that's also something weird. So I actually know a lot of people because I've just been to so many schools. Oh my gosh. Where do I live now? I live in the UK. I live in the UK. Bring Understitch to narrate my law. I would love Understitch to narrate my law. That would be amazing. Did people hunt game as well? Yes, they did hunt game. They 100% did. The rise and rise of fashion roadman. Oh my god, that's funny. But it was a good time. I feel like I became so intelligent because I lived in the village, because the amount of books I read in the village was insane. I just because you're like, well, what do I do? I'm a kid. There's no internet. There's no electricity, so I can't even watch the 3 channels that we have on TV. I guess I'm gonna read. So there was a bookshop in my village. I must have read almost all the books in that bookshop. No lie. I read every book there. I've read like all the like Chimamanda books, like Half of a Yellow Sun, Purple Hibiscus, because they were in that shop. I read the Bible from beginning to end because I was just like, let me just read something. Like, it's crazy. I read so much stuff. so much stuff when I was there. It's actually insane. Yeah, fully no grocery stores, but there was a bookshop. Facts. Facts. I guess the Nigerians, we value reading more so than grocery stores. People said, not the Bible. You guys need to remember, Nigeria is a really religious country. So it's like you're either a Muslim, a Christian, or just a waste of space. Personally, my family like comes from a Christian background. So there were Bibles all over the house. So it was like, I'm done reading all these books in this bookshop. Let me read the Bible front to back. Let me see what the Bible's talking about. Let's see what the Bible has in store for me. How is the Bible? I want an opinion of someone who literally read it. Oh, that's it. I could never answer that question. The Bible is a massive book with so many different stories, so many different lessons. I could not even begin to answer that kind of question. That's a crazy question. People say not the Bible as if it's an obscure Pulitzer Prize winner. That's funny. But anyway, guys. Anyway. Okay, let me answer this last question, and we can move on with the fashion stories. Where would you like if money wasn't a concern? Do you mean where would you live? I feel like you meant where would I live if money wasn't a concern. I don't really know, to be honest. I've lived in so many different places, and I feel like everywhere has their charm. Probably, if money wasn't a concern, probably somewhere with warm weather, first of all. So maybe like, I would have said California earlier, but with the whole political environment, maybe not. Because I feel like what makes California a no-go for me is because I'm not a rich person. I feel like if you're a rich person, you can make it work. You can take advantage of the weather, or like there's parts of South Africa that are really nice if you're rich, of course. Maybe like South Africa, like parts of South Africa, parts of Italy. To be honest, if money wasn't a thing, I'd probably have like houses in different places and just like shuttle between Italy and South Africa and Nigeria and like Cali and stuff. I'm sure that's what rich people do already, to be fair. And I'll definitely want to have a base in Asia because I'm obsessed with Thailand. I love Thailand as a country, like so obsessed. I just love the lifestyle in Thailand. I'm not talking about like Bangkok. I like Phuket specifically. I really, really like Phuket. Like I could live in Phuket for like years. Maybe I might. Who knows? Maybe one day I become a big enough streamer and I just up and leave and I go to Thailand. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Nigerian Jews. I don't know if I've ever seen a Nigerian Jew in my life, but I think there must be. But I've personally never seen one. But yeah, there must be. There must be Nigerians that are Jewish, but yeah, I've personally never seen it. I've never seen it before. Never ever seen it. So yeah. So yeah. But anyway, guys, moving on. The next fashion story we shall be talking about is what is going on at Versace. As I'm sure a lot of you know, things have been happening at Versace. There have been many things going on at the brand. And of course, with the biggest story being that Dario Vitale is succeeding Donatella Versace as the chief creative officer at Versace, which was insane news, to be fair. We kind of knew that was going to happen because we have seen, you know, the conversation around the acquisition of Versace. And I guess the writing was on the wall that, you know, considering there's an acquisition in place and being had, that there was going to be some executive movement, maybe someone stepping down, maybe people on the executive team leaving, or one executive team just taking over the existing one, and all those kind of things. It's going to be kind of weird. a non-Versace at Versace. We've never seen that before. I mean, we've only seen, um, Donatella and her brother at the brand. We haven't seen anyone else, to be fair. So yeah, I don't know what, a non-Gianni Versace or Donatella Versace actually looks like. But it's curious. It's new beginnings. It's a new realm for Versace. It should be interesting. And I mean, Miu Miu is a brand that has seen immense success. I mean, you look at like the Prada financial reports, for example, they obviously know what they're doing. I mentioned earlier, and I alluded to it earlier, that Prada Group was actually one of the few groups that weathered the storm during the luxury downturn. So even this is Prada's financial report for 2024. You can actually see all their profits are up, the revenue is up, and they have the specific stats for Miu Miu that I'm looking for right now. So here we have Miu Miu's remarkable organic growth. So it was up 93% year on year. And it was supported by all categories and regions, ending the year with an excellent Q4 at plus 84% year on year. So strong Q4, strong year. That means that their revenue in 2024 was 93% higher. Then there was a 92% increase, when you compare it to their revenue in 2023, which is absolutely insane. Which means that the people at Miu Miu obviously know what they're doing financially. They kind of have everything down. So if, Prada, which is, it's likely that they're taking over Versace, we might see even more resurgence with their company, with the Prada Group, but also at Versace, because Versace's revenues have gone down slightly, which might be why they're looking for investors and to be taken over. But let's read and see what's going on. Donatella Versace will be chief brand ambassador after nearly 3 decades at the creative helm of the label, founded by her late brother, Gianni Versace. And for people that don't know about, Dario Vitale, he was Miu Miu's former design and image director. And, as the article says, he has now been appointed as the chief creative officer of Versace. So, moving on, we're going to skip the quotes. It says, the change comes as Miu Miu's owner, Prada Group, is reportedly inching closer to buying Versace from Capri Holdings in a $1.5 billion deal, which could see Vitale returning to the Prada fold. The American group, still reeling after an $8.5 billion deal to merge with Coach owner Tapestry, was blocked by the US Federal Trade Commission last year, has been reevaluating its portfolio, which also includes Michael Kors and Jimmy Choo. That's a terrible portfolio, by the way. That's no man's land. Like, when you think of what Capri Holdings has, they are seriously in no man's land. It's also quite insane that they blocked it. The craziest thing that actually stands out to me more so than anything, and I wanted to create a conversation around it, is the fact that Prada might be buying Versace for $1.5 billion. That seems so strange to me, because I was like, $1.5 billion, that seems a bit low. So I was like, let me Google how much revenue Versace made in 2024. And apparently they made 1 billion in revenue. So if they made 1 billion in revenue, normally when they evaluate companies, it's normally like a 10x or at minimum like a 5x of their annual revenue is the value of the company. So how can a company earn 1 billion in revenue but be worth 1.5 billion? So I was like, that sounds a bit weird. There must be something going on behind the scenes that we don't know. Maybe they're making revenue, but their business model is all out of whack. They're making crazy losses. In that sense, it would make a lot more sense why they're worth that low based on the revenue that they make. But that just seemed a bit strange. It's like, that's a crazy, crazy low figure for a brand as big as Versace. That was just weird. So that was something that stood out to me. And if Prada do end up buying Versace for $1.5 billion, they've literally hit the lotto. They've won the lottery, because that is seemingly an insanely cheap price for Versace, to be very honest with you. Um, but reading on, let's see. Versace's brand has long been bigger than its business. Following its 2018 acquisition by Capri, the group aimed to grow the Italian label known globally for its maximalist prints and reduce the logo into a $2 billion brand, but sales have languished at little over $1 billion and contracted last year. Oh, so they even said it in this article that their sales are around $1 billion. So yeah, once again, like how can a brand be worth 1.5 billion but they're making 1 billion in revenue? That is weird to me. That is just the strangest thing. I've never seen anything like that before, especially in fashion. Yeah, I really need to look into the net. Unfortunately I couldn't find the information for the net, which is why I said the only, sensible reason why that could happen is if net wise they're making crazy losses, and maybe yes they're making all that revenue, but maybe their outgoings are like 2 billion or something insane. But yeah, we'll see. Because Prada, they know what they're doing business wise. I mean, they were the only group to weather the storm in the luxury downturn, so they can bring that understanding and that business acumen to Versace and help fix whatever issues they're having on a structural level, to be honest. So yeah. I never see anyone wearing Versace. True, but Versace makes a killing with like accessories and stuff like that. And like other product categories. Like Versace is known for doing all these crazy projects. Like you have like all these Versace hotels in Dubai and like Versace themed private jets that Versace gets paid a lot for, because for some reason people like those ghastly prints. And then loads of people buy like Versace bathrobes. That's like a really big product category for them. So in certain aspects, they do sell a lot. When I think of Versace, I think of like rich guy in Miami with no taste that wears the Versace print shirts. Because also the thing that I used to love about Versace that isn't really Versace anymore is apart from like Gianni Versace actually being like an exceptional designer, I think that Gianni Versace is actually really underrated from a design perspective. I think people just think of like Medusa logos and not the amazing dresses that he made. That aside, when you think of when Gianni Versace was at the brand, they were using actual silk to make the shirts, which is why a lot of them were so expensive. Nowadays, I don't know what synthetic materials they use, but it's just not really the same. Which is why I don't really have the same interest in like those kind of shirts coming from Versace, to be honest. And this is true. Versace fragrances are very popular. I would have to check who owns the rights to Versace fragrances, though. Let me actually do a quick Google live on stream. Who owns the rights to Versace fragrances? Because they might not own it. Let's see. Fragrance licensing. Okay, Versace has a licensing agreement with Euro Italia, a fragrance and cosmetics company, for the production and distribution of Versace fragrances. Euro Italia is a global player in the beauty industry, creating fragrances and cosmetic products for luxury fashion houses, including Versace. I mean, interesting. Either way, when the license happens, it's not like they don't still make money from it. Normally, how the licenses work, I need to look deeper into that specific one. But normally, how the licenses work is they get a percentage of profits from the companies that they license it to, which is why they're so lucrative, right? Because they don't have to build any of the infrastructure. They can just lean on the infrastructure of these like massive beauty companies and then just take a percentage of profits. And sometimes they don't even have to pay for marketing too. If that's smart, some of these licensing deals, they sign a deal where part of the profits of the business, the beauty business, is used towards marketing of the goods. So they almost don't have to pay for all the marketing also, which is really smart. It's like a no-brainer for most companies, to be fair. Unless you're like really, really big, like LVMH size, then you can like take care of it yourself. But if you're not that size, it makes sense to have to license your beauty products. People are just absolutely decimating straight men wearing Versace Eros. I like Versace Eros though. Versace Eros was one of the earlier fragrances I had, and I still have, maybe because it was one of those early fragrances I had, I still have like a nice, nostalgic feel when I think of Versace Eros. Not too much hate on Versace Eros, guys. Not too much. Not too much. Lots of people just don't care and are ignorant about things such as fabric and construction. Fair enough. It means I need to do my job better in talking about fabric quality and just all these things. It's why we have these conversations on these streams, right? It's why it happens. But anyway, let me show you guys some of these Versace. Let me whip up Notino, my favorite fragrance shop, so to speak. Let's see, Versace. So you've got like Eros, which does absolute numbers for Versace. Someone mentioned Dylan Blue. Yeah, Dylan Blue does crazy numbers. Do you know, actually, before Versace Eros, a fragrance that I used to have, a really cheap fragrance. I think it smells horrible. Maybe it smells horrible to me now, but back then it was the shit. But now it smells absolutely atrocious. Yes, this. Oh my God, this smells so bad. Versace jeans. Oh my word. This smells so bad. So bad. This is probably one of the worst smelling fragrances I've ever smelled in my entire life. But when I was young, I had this and I thought I was the bee's knees. I thought I was that guy. I was like, you guys are wearing Axe, I'm wearing Versace jeans blue. It smells so bad. It's so bad. Like, I smelled it recently, and in my head, I was like, did this actually smell this bad? Oh my gosh. I can't believe I used to love this fragrance when I was younger. That's crazy. This is honestly my top 5 worst smelling fragrances of all time. Genuinely. It's so bad. But funny enough, this fragrance sells like hotcake because it's so cheap and affordable, right? So a lot of people love this fragrance for that. But I just think it smells atrocious. I think it just smells so bad. But yeah, shout out to Versace. They might obviously launch more and more new fragrances, especially with Prada Group coming in. So that should be interesting. And I'll be looking forward to see kind of what they do in that sense. But also something that we should go is, because BOF did also have some sensational coverage of the actual, Prada takeover of Versace that is still in the works, apparently. So they had 2 articles. The first one is Risky Business, should Prada buy Versace? Turning around the Italian icon will be a significant challenge for Prada Group and could distract top managers from scaling its core brands, but the gamble may be worth it if the price is right. Now, key on if the price is right, because as it stands, like I said earlier, $1.5 billion to me looks like an absolute bargain. It really, really does. Luke said the bee's knees. Bro, I can't help it. I grew up in the UK for most of my life, apart from when I was in Nigeria. So I can't help using English terms. It's kind of it's kind of what I do. Like if I say knickers in a twist, or I talk about the bee's knees and stuff like that. Do you listen to Imran and Tim's podcast? Their breakdown of Demna's appointment was interesting. Yeah, I listened to that. They did talk about kind of what Demna needs to do. They were talking about how Demna needs to go away from the ironic thing and he needs to do something else for it to work and all that sort of stuff. We can get into that later. But right now we're talking about Versace and Prada. But reading on. On Tuesday, Prada reported its 2024 results with net revenues up 18% for the year, ended December 31, beating market expectations by 2%. Sales at Miu Miu, once seen as Prada's secondary little sister brand, soared by 83%, with more than 1.3 billion euros in net sales. The group also improved profitability, expanding its EBIT margin to 23.6%, in line with analyst forecasts. So here they're talking about obviously the strong performance, which we're kind of setting the scene. What I wanted to show you is this graph. I think this is amazing. BOF normally shows like these amazing graphs where you can really easily visualize how these things have been changing. Dog's bollocks, that's funny. You guys are slamming and spamming all the British terms in the chat. But yeah, you can see the growth of Prada, Miu Miu, and then the other part of, Prada Group's business. So you can see that pale pink color is Prada. The more deeper rich pink is Miu Miu. And you can see how much bigger it is. Like compare the sheer size of Miu Miu in 2019 to 2024, and the sheer size of Prada from 2019 to 2024. They've gone insane, like absolutely insane. So they've been able to generate a lot of revenue. And of course, as they mentioned in this article, they can use that expertise to kind of, merge with Versace and use that understanding and that commercial knowledge to really bring some expertise to Versace and help them fix whatever issues they are having, because Versace is still a bit untapped. There's many things that they haven't done. Versace hasn't really hit the zeitgeist in a very long time. The way that, let's say, Demna's Balenciaga hit the zeitgeist, or Alessandro Michele's Gucci hit the zeitgeist. Versace hasn't had one of those like cultural, takeover moments as a brand, like, Dior at Kim Jones. Like, these are times when culturally those brands really had a lot to say and a lot of people are wearing those brands. I haven't seen that from Versace in a really long time. So there's a lot to be done there. There's a lot of untapped potential at the brand. It looks like Versace's cultural takeover happened 30 years ago. Yeah, which is why, of course, there's a lot of work to be done if and when Prada does take over. They're talking about the Capri deal, which we mentioned earlier. Then they mentioned, with so much going right at Prada, why would the group want to add a troubled brand into the mix? For one, an acquisition could help to drive growth, adding about $1.1 billion in annual revenues to the Prada Group, providing further scale to compete with the big luxury groups. Versace's core maximalist aesthetic with its Medusa logo and iconic print is complementary to that of minimalist Prada and youthful Miu Miu, so the brands would not compete with each other, which is very true. They do sit in different markets. They have different customer bases. That's very, very true. So long as Prada doesn't make Versace another Prada, of course. Granted, that doesn't happen. But Prada has tried and failed to acquire and scale brands before. In 1999, the group went on a buying spree, buying controlling stakes in Gilsano and Helmut Lang, only to divest of these businesses later when they failed to scale. You guys will know about the whole, if you guys know about your fashion history, you guys would know all about when Prada Group took over Gilsano, because that's when Gilsano started leaving fashion and had a love-hate relationship with fashion. And that was also when TikTok Tick, Raf Simons, became involved, which is why him going back to Prada all those years later, people are talking about, oh, do you remember when, Raf Simons probably knows a lot of people at Prada Group because he was at Gilsano, during the Prada Group times. So, you guys that know about fashion history will know all about that, but I digress. These acquisitions turned out to be premature because Prada's own house wasn't in order. The thinking now is that the group has a more scalable infrastructure and platform upon which to scale other brands. It could lend its operational expertise in manufacturing, marketing, and retail to turn Versace around, just like it has done for Prada and Miu Miu, which is basically kind of what I was saying. So that's kind of the whole stick around the acquisition of Prada and kind of Donatella stepping down and new creative director and how things can be changed and revamped. Oh, that was a terrible cough. Anyway, reading on. So what happens when you read continuously for hours? Reading on. There was another rumor that was seen online. BOF obviously covered it. Prada's CEO flies to New York as speculation swells over Versace bid. So at this point, it's like inevitable. It's like, this thing is going to happen. It's just a matter of when. So we shall be watching closely. Wait, James says, Prada Group is the only group that's good in the fashion space. Can't trust Kering or the dread LVMH. I mean, in the defense of you know, in the defense of LVMH and Kering, not that, oh my god, defending like big conglomerates, oh my god, what's happening to me? In their defense, they are way bigger than Prada Group, meaning it's a lot harder to scale when you're already big. It's easier to scale as a smaller company than it is as a big company, because once you've exhausted most of your customer base, it's harder to grow. But if there are, if there's untapped potential, it's easier to grow, right? So that's one thing I will say. Like, if Prada Group was as big as LVMH, it would take even better business strategy to continue growing when you're already that big, to be honest. When you have that many customers already. So to try and grow past that is even more challenging. So yeah, that's that's one of the rare times I'll come to the defense of a massive conglomerate that has brands that exploit people, like Dior, for example. We've covered that. So yeah, I'll bet money that Versace does a quiet luxury collection. I hope not. It's just not in their purview. And like I've said this so many times, I'll say it again, is, guys, I like when brands have different aesthetics. It makes fashion more fun. It makes fashion more interesting when every brand has their own unique USP. And as a customer, you can decide to go to which brand that you like based on the USP and the aesthetic that, they are going with at the time. If everything becomes homogenized, that's not fun. Wait, what's Luke saying in the chat? Aya says, but you guys know that fashion history, so that even if his audience doesn't, they are encouraged to seek out that knowledge for themselves and be confident in their fashion education. Brava. I mean, that's what the streams are for. We just we throw in these nuggets of fashion history within the news stories. But I'm sure most people know about the Ras Simmons thing, to be fair. Like, did you guys know about that in the chat? Let me know if you guys knew. Let me see what you guys say. Let's see what you guys say. Let's see. Like, I'm sure most people know that when Ras Simmons was at Jill Sander, it was owned by Prada Group. So he's already worked with the Prada Group before his current time. Oh, okay, guys are saying no in the chat. Okay, my bad. My bad. My bad. My bad. My bad. I'll stop assuming knowledge. My bad, guys. My bad. My bad. My bad. My bad. Raf crying will always be on my mind. Tyson says, I knew Raf was at Jill Sander, but I didn't know about the Prada investment. Oh, okay, interesting. Okay, culture new. Culture new. My bad, guys. I'll stop assuming knowledge. But at least now you guys know. Now you guys know. So yeah, that's the whole story around the Versace potential takeover and kind of why it's interesting. It's an interesting story in fashion, and also what could change fashion business wise, and even why it's potentially a good idea. Now, the last thing I wanted to do, kind of make it more fun, make it more interesting. Guys, we are back on the r/Balenciaga Reddit page, guys. We're back here. So I was on Balenciaga, as you do, because I'm on Reddit quite a lot, to be fair, and I'm in so many different Reddit groups. And in this r/Balenciaga Reddit, I saw this bingo thing. It's called the Demna hater bingo. To be fair, shout out to the person that made this, because it's quite funny, to be fair. Rude_researcher 2248. This is a very interesting thing. Let's see how many of these things I've said before. Let's see how many of these takes I've had myself. Let me move myself to the side so you can see it fully. So, Demna hater bingo 101. He's going to ruin Gucci right now. And then they showed a picture of, ghastly Gucci monograms. Now, obviously, that is very nitpicky, because to say that all of Gucci is just print, especially in an era where the most recent era of Gucci is Sabato De Sarno's era of Gucci, which is literally quiet luxury, kind of like luxe, minimal, less logos. So that kind of defeats the point, because that isn't actually what Gucci looks like right now, to be very honest. But yeah, I do understand kind of the mentality of, he's going to ruin Gucci. It's funny because I do agree in a sense that some people just like to have hot takes on, which I think this is what this is alluding to. A lot of people like to have takes online, but they're not really that well educated on what their hot take is. So they'll be like, oh, he's going to ruin Gucci, but they don't even know anything really about Gucci's history, all the way from Tom Ford to Sabato De Sarno. They couldn't tell you really different designers and what their eras characterized, and kind of what the aesthetic looked like, and what the marketing was like, and what the branding was like, and what are the famous campaigns that they did, what are their most famous runway shows, what are the products that they did that were hits. They just say stuff. They're like, oh, he's gonna ruin Gucci, he's gonna ruin this. But or like people say, which I think was in this bingo too, people are like, oh my god, he's like destroyed Balenciaga. But it's like they don't even know what Balenciaga's silhouettes are. I don't know what Balenciaga is famous for. So that is definitely true, to be fair. That is quite accurate. To be fair. But I also agree with this, as if most of us that Balenciaga knows. True. True. So let's go to the next one. Cristobal is rolling in his grave, but can't name 5 characteristics of Cristobal's designs. That's fair enough, to be fair. So I don't think I've ever said this before. So these two things I've never said. I don't necessarily think he's going to ruin Gucci. My mentality is that we just have to wait and see what he does. So that's to be seen. The whole Cristobal is rolling in his grave, I've never really said that. That's a mentality I see a lot online, to be fair. Like, Cristobal's rolling in his grave, but can't name 5 characteristics of Cristobal's designs. Fair enough, touche, because that's definitely true of most people that, say that. So yeah, that's definitely true. Let's see the next one. I thought we cancelled him. Was never, has never, and will never buy Balenciaga to begin with. So this take is quite interesting, right? Because I made a video that was titled, and this goes back to when I was joking in a past stream where I said comprehension is at an all-time low. The video was titled something around why Balenciaga can't be cancelled. And a lot of people, without even, watching the video or seeing what my actual take was, they jumped on, Ferraris and speed ran into the comments. They jumped into, military jets and absolutely speed ran into the comments to say, I don't respect you anymore. I don't like your channel. You're always defending Balenciaga. You think what Balenciaga is doing is okay. I don't respect you anymore. All you do is defend these brands. They probably pay you, blah, 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 blah. And it's like the point I was making in the video is that the reason why it seems like Balenciaga will never be cancelled, and they probably won't, is because the only way you can cancel a brand, especially a company, is by affecting it where it hurts, which is money. So for a brand to be cancelled, the people that spend their money buying the brand have to boycott the brand. And that did not happen. When you look at the financial reports, it's literally clearly there. Read the financial reports that despite the scandal, in Asia, there wasn't too much of an effect on sales. Therefore, they weren't cancelled, because the customer base didn't stop buying it. If you never bought Balenciaga and you're outraged online, fair enough, but it's not changing the reality of, or the bottom line of Balenciaga. So what you're doing is not actually per se effective in canceling Balenciaga or stopping it running as a brand, or all those kind of things. So that was the point I was making. But people not even, it's what people do these days, the TikTok era. They read a headline, they don't read the article, they look at the title of a video, they don't watch the video. That was the point I was making. So it's kind of interesting because the point I was making in that video is very aligned with that take where they said that I thought we cancelled him, was never, has never, and will never buy Balenciaga to begin with. So it's like, yeah, how can you cancel a brand when you never bought the brand before? So you cancelling them actually doesn't change their day-to-day at all. Literally at all. So that was the point I was making. Do I agree morally with certain things? Probably not. Do I think some things are overblown? Also, yes. But either way, I was never a Balenciaga customer, so my opinion isn't changing the bottom line of Balenciaga. Like, I could say that Balenciaga did this and it was wrong, or Balenciaga did that and it was wrong. But at the end of the day, I was never a customer. So nothing really changes whether I, like or don't like it, because I was never buying it in the first place. And I don't know why that's so hard to like for people to comprehend, that if you're not, buying something, you boycotting something doesn't move the needle. I don't know why that's so hard for like people to understand, but anyway, weird. Let's see the next hot take. Give me 2K, I'll sell you my work shoes. I've definitely seen that before. People saying that, Demna's just like selling like all these. I've actually had that opinion too. Not give me 2K and I'll sell you my work shoes, but I definitely said that, Demna is making shoes that are just literally working class culture coded. Like, this is a pure example, right? There's a time when Demna made these Balenciaga sneakers. I've forgotten what the Zen sneakers. And I had a video that was basically roasting these sneakers, right? Because I was like, these remind me of, Lonsdale's that I used to buy when I was in primary school because I couldn't afford like Air Force Ones and all those like super expensive shoes that people used to wear when I was young, like Air Max 95s or Air Max 90s. So I used to wear, I'll show you the shoes I used to wear. These are what I used to wear, these Lonsdales from Sports Direct. So it just, all I saw when I see those shoes is just pure working class reappropriation for Balenciaga. The whole, haha, ironic. This is something that's associated with working class culture, but we're going to put it in the context of a luxury brand, which is a lot of Demna's stick at Balenciaga. So I definitely would have said something that alluded to the fact that that's kind of what he's doing. And it was £425. So I just thought it was ridiculous. So yeah, that's what I thought it was. So I guess I said something along those lines, like give me 2K and I'll sell you my work shoes type of thing. Let's see what the bonus is. Bonus: if they dress in a way that makes you wonder if they're even into fashion. That is so funny. If they dress in a way that makes you wonder if you're even into fashion, guys. Do I dress in a way that makes you wonder if I'm even into fashion? I guess most people think that, to be fair, because most people see me sitting in my living room. I literally had a comment, was it yesterday or the day before, where someone was like, I can't take you seriously because you're always wearing cheap sportswear in these live streams and you don't look like a fashion person. So I can't take you seriously when you talk about fashion. And in my head, I was thinking, first of all, my content is not about style. My content is about fashion business, fashion news, and analyzing runway shows, for starters. If I was making stylish videos, maybe. Second of all, I make videos at home. I'm literally, right now, I'm sat on my bed. I'm literally wearing shorts. Exactly what Coach said, do you even have pants on? I'm literally wearing shorts. I'm relaxing in my house. If you want to see maybe how I dress, if I do like put an outfit together, Instagram is free. You can see kind of some of the stuff that I wear on Instagram. I do kind of dress up sometimes, but most times I don't even post my outfits on Instagram because it's kind of like weird. I like wearing clothes that I like, and I feel like when you post your outfits on Instagram, it's kind of like a performance. It makes me question, like, am I dressing this way for Instagram, or am I dressing this way because that's how I want to dress? So that's another thing. Like here, you can have a gander on my Instagram. These are my outfits, guys. This is some of my wacky stuff. Walter van Bernendonk, Antimelemeister, which I wear all the time. Even right now, I'm wearing Antimelemeister. So I mean, this stuff it's there. It's online. If you want to see how I look when I'm not, sat in my in my bedroom or whatever, this is me. This is my Instagram, guys. Just in case you didn't know. For people that are like, you don't even dress like a fashion person. You just wear cheap sportswear in all your videos. So I do find that mentality really weird. But I guess this take can kind of apply to me because at the moment I'm critiquing Demna's work in Balenciaga. I guess people can deem that I dress in a way that makes people wonder if I'm into fashion. So touche, to be fair. Touche. That's like saying I can't listen to LeBron talk about basketball because he's not holding a basketball. Also, I think the most ridiculous thing about that mentality, right, is people that say like they don't take me seriously because I don't dress like a fashion person. Well, first of all, I talk about fashion business, and guess what I do? I work in the business of fashion behind the scenes. One of the reasons why I actually push streams backwards is because I actually work in the industry, meaning if I have a lot of work to do, I can no longer do the stream because obviously my day job is my priority. So I actually I'm very involved with a lot of the things that I talk about, like all these business deals. Even right now, I'm working for a company in the middle of like certain business deals, and I'm getting some key information about how it works, the companies that we're working with, and these are with big companies, by the way. So I'm literally involved real time in like these business deals. There's also like collaborations with big companies. I'm seeing it firsthand. I'm quite involved. So it's weird. Who would you rather? I'm clueless about fashion, but I dress in a way that makes me look fashiony, but I've never worked in the industry and I have no knowledge about anything. What would you guys prefer? Like, I literally never worked in the industry a day in my life. I'm just talking out of my ass, no experience, no knowledge, no like actual, resume in fashion. I just came here and started yapping with no experience. But I just kind of, dressed in a funky way. So, I can take you seriously because you're wearing kind of cool stuff. Even if you're clueless. I just find it weird. It's really strange. It's really, really odd. But I get those comments all the time. I find it funny. But I specifically got one yesterday, which is why it came to mind. Reddit said, give me ignorance or give me death. Are you allowed to trade their stocks? No, I'm not. That would be illegal. So no, I am certainly not. Depends if you're talking about styling or not. Yeah, which is why I did say earlier that if my content had anything to do with styling, it would be fair enough, but I don't talk about style at all. That is not what my content is about at all. But anyway, let's move on. Martine Rose is a way better designer anyway, but can't name 5 Martine Rose pieces they like, let alone own any. I mean, I've never said Martine Rose is a way better designer than Demna. The what I have said though is that Martine Rose did definitely influence the aesthetic that Demna was using earlier in Balenciaga, like the whole boxy oversized silhouette. Martine Rose has used that since the early 2000s. Like, if you know about Martine Rose, you would have seen her use that silhouette constantly, and she was a consultant for menswear on the early Demna Balenciaga shows. So it's not like I'm talking out my ass, that's just facts. So I've definitely said that. Also, I do own a lot of Martine Rose pieces, and I have reviewed a lot of Martine Rose runway shows. So clearly, I can speak to Martine Rose pieces, but it's probably true that a lot of people that say that probably can't. So fair enough, touche. To that point, to be fair. But let's see what the next take is. He does the same thing every time. Loves Rick, Yosi, and Eddie. That's definitely And shots fired at me. Definitely direct shots at, because I wear a lot of Rick Yoji, and I don't own any Adi Simon clothing, but I do love his work. And maybe one day, because I just find Adi Simon's clothes so expensive, like they're not affordable. Maybe one day, but I do like what he does. Like I would wear his stuff. So that feels like direct shots fired. So thing is, I don't think Rick does the same thing every time though. Eddie Simon doesn't do the same thing every time. In fact, the way I can prove to you that he doesn't do the same thing every time is people literally said when he went to Celine that, oh, he's just going to make it YSL. And I know that a lot of people don't have a discerning eye. So they saw the first, Celine shows and they were like, oh, it just looks like what he did at YSL and Dior, which is not true because the silhouettes that he was using was inspired by the heritage of Celine itself by way of Celine Vapiano. That's why he was using a wider silhouette with the denim or wasn't as skinny. He was taking inspiration from like Celine collections in like the 70s and the 80s and stuff like that. And he literally put his research on Instagram. So you could, obviously you can't find it now, but it's literally on Instagram back then. A lot of people didn't look at the research. So it's completely different to what he's done in the past. And then there was a time he went in such a different direction. Do you guys remember when he had that TikTok collection, the Dancing Kid collection? That was a complete 180 to what we've seen from Adi Simon. So to say that Adi Simon does the same thing every time, I don't buy it. Same thing with Rick. Rick doesn't do the same thing every time. Rick has a design signature, but he changes like completely like certain footwear silhouettes, jacket silhouettes. It's just that he has such a distinctive shape. It looks like it's the same every season, but it really isn't. Yoji is more so who this could be valid for. I think Yoji is definitely getting to the point. I actually think Yoji as a brand is regressing, and that hurts me. It hurts my soul to say that because Yoji is one of my favorite designers of all time. The first designer I ever got into was Yoji. I've talked about this all the time. It's why I used to wear Y3 when I first got into fashion because I couldn't afford like mainline. So yeah, Yoji will always have a special place in my heart. That being said, I do feel like the brand is regressing. And Yoji, I think, is the only brand that is valid to say that it's a brand where they're starting to do the same thing. So I don't know. I don't think that's valid. The whole, he does the same thing every time, but loves Rick, Yoji, and Eddie. I don't think that's necessarily valid because I don't think any of those people, minus maybe Yoji, has been doing similar things. Except my heart just dropped clean out of my ass hearing you say that. Hey, it is what it is. First of all, a lot of recent Yoji shows. Have you seen? I don't know if it. Obviously, it's probably not Yoji. Let me whip up Vogue Runaway, and show you guys something actually, just so you can see what I'm talking about. Let me show you guys something. Because there was literally a point in time where it was like, okay, Yoji, we're not even trying. Where Yoji was literally printing his face on runaway pieces. Like, bro. Bro was printing his own face on runaway piece. I was like, okay, we're just not trying anymore. Like, what's going on here? Like all this kind of stuff where it's just like, I'll show you like stuff like this, for example. So love the silhouette. Huge fan of the silhouette, obviously, which is why I wear loads of Yoji. I think the silhouette is perfect for someone of my body type. That being said, this whole like every single look is like a print of Yoji's face, bang slap on the garments, all this kind of stuff is just so like, bruh, we're just not trying anymore. Like, what are we doing here? So this is what I mean when I say that, a lot of Yoji is regressing. There are literally runaway shows where damn near half of the pieces is just Yoji's face printed on the pieces. Like, no joke. So that's what I mean when I refer to that. And like I said, Yoji is one of my favorite brands. So, but once again, it's not Yoji is literally old. Like, how old is Yoji? He can't keep going forever anyway. I'm sure he's slowed down, and there's people that are making these decisions and people on the design team like messing up all the stuff. But let me see, Yoji Yamamoto age. Yeah, Yoji is 81, guys. So I'm not holding Yoji at the age of 81 to any sort of standard. But if we're just talking about the brand in general, I'm just saying in terms of this hot take, what brand is it, most valid for? I would say Yoji out of, Eddie Simon, like the brands that he's at, or Rick Owens, to be fair. Yeah, exactly. A lot of the silhouettes look the same, but Yoji gave us some of the best shit in fashion, so I don't care. Exactly how I feel, to be honest. Let's see what the next hot take is, guys. Let's see. Good riddance. I hope the house is restored to its former glory. Knowledge about its history starts and ends with the Disney Plus. With the Disney Plus miniseries. That is hilarious, to be fair. What was their Disney series called again? What was it called? I'm forgetting. I haven't watched it because my friends told me not to watch it. Oh, it was actually called Cristobal Balenciaga. This series here, right? Cristobal Balenciaga, 1 season. So it's actually last year. Yeah, so this series, and there's I think it's called The New Look, which is a series on Dior, is also another series that my friends told me not to watch because obviously I already know the history. So there's nothing that I'm going to really learn from a dramatized series on, the history of Balenciaga or the history of Dior, whatever. And they told me that actually some of it is not even accurate, or stuff is like over emphasized for dramatic effect to make it entertaining, which is hilarious. So that's why I just didn't even bother watching it. But that could be true. It's a new series. I don't know if there are many people who their only understanding of the history of Balenciaga is literally watching a series, but touche. That is funny though. That is funny. Hope it returns to its former glory. Their knowledge of Balenciaga starts and ends with the TV series on Balenciaga. Wait, let's see, Luke. They got Dior and Balenciaga sharing a chocolate bar in the New Look. They never even met. Oh my gosh. See, that's why I just refuse to watch it. Waste of time. It's pointless. No point. That's too funny. They had Cristobal Balenciaga and Christian Dior sharing a chocolate bar. What the hell? That is way too funny. Yeah, let's see what the last hot take is in this Demna hater bingo. Can name 0 solid things they like about previous creative directors. To be fair, that tends to be the case. I think the reason why that tends to be the case for most people that speak about fashion online is that most formats of fashion content don't leave for you to have to explain yourself. So for example, if you stream like me, you have to explain yourself so people can tell very quickly if you know what you're talking about or not. Because I mean, people are literally watching you talk about fashion for hours and hours over and over and over again. If you just tweet about things, you can just be like, here's, it's making me roll in my grave, and then the conversation ends there, and you never really have to talk about any of the work at Balenciaga. You don't have to talk about, what Alexander Wang did, or Nicolas Gasquiel, talk about any of the eras, analyze any runway shows in any depth. Like people that tweet, literally on Twitter, there are people who their whole page is Balenciaga. Like, let's say a Balenciaga, let's say Fall Winter 26 collection comes out. They'll take the images off Vogue Runway, and then they'll like post 4 of the images, and the caption would literally be Balenciaga Fall Winter 2016 by so-and-so creative director, and that's the post. And it gets like loads of, like, a lot of them don't have to explain anything or show any like understanding or knowledge of anything when it comes to fashion history or contemporary fashion even, or like analyze anything in any meaningful way, which means that is very valid. That, can name 0 solid things they like about previous creative directors. Because I'm very sure a lot of people, if you were to tell them to like stream about, okay, analyze, you know, that Balenciaga, that same Balenciaga show and hop on a stream and talk about it for an hour and a half. Most people will not be able to do that. So it is like a valid hot take, to be fair. It's very, very valid. Why is fashion history such a niche? Like, why is it gates kept? I don't know, to be fair. I don't think it should be a niche. I just think it's more to do with interest. I just don't think most people are interested in learning about it, which is fair enough. Like, people are interested in what they're interested in. I do find it weird when people try to gatekeep it. So when people try to, like, I'm not going to tell you about that history because I had to read 10 books, so you have to read the same book. I find that kind of weird. Like, if people ask me a question about some historical thing, I just tell them. I'm not like gatekeeping it, or telling them go read this book instead of me telling them. But I don't think it's gatekept. I think it's more to do with just not that many people are interested in it. Which is kind of ironic because so many people have like really strong opinions about fashion, but it's not really backed on any because fashion is subjective, right? But that being said, if your subjectivity is not backed by any understanding or knowledge about fashion, it tends to just be hot takes, basically, which is what we get with most commentary on fashion, unfortunately. So yeah. Anglerfish said, analyze. You already lost most of them. Yeah, there are tons of books, and a lot of them are available. Like, not even just like, what's this website? I'll put you guys on game. There's a website called, I think it's Archive PDF. So this website here. So this is why I don't necessarily think it's gatekept. So Archive PDF, oh, they moved. So, but anyway, on this page, they have like scans of different books and magazines and articles from the past. So I used to like, I've read Raf Simons' Redux through Archive PDF. I've read one of the Margiela books that they put up. There's a book on Comme des Garçons that I've read. So you can find these things all over. Like, you can find them. Someone said, isn't that pirating? It is, but it's not me doing it. So I am not liable. I'm just telling you guys where you can find this stuff. So yeah, I've read a lot of the stuff on, like, I've read loads of PDFs. People have helped me scan books. I feel like the fashion community is really wholesome if you find the right people, because I have friends who have literally, you know, scanned books because I don't have the book, and they're like, you know what, I'll scan it and send it to you, right? And I feel like the community is wholesome. Like, I had a book on Bibber and I gave it to Understitch, and Understitch referenced that book in their video on Bibber, which was an amazing video, by the way. Everyone check out Understitch. Amazing content. So I don't know, if you find the right people and you're in a like tight-knit community and stuff, I think that, you know, yeah, I don't think it's gatekept, to be honest. I don't think so. I just think it's more to do with like interest and stuff like that, more so than anything else. So yeah, that's basically what it is. Understitch is amazing. How I know most of my fashion history. Yeah, Understitch is sensational. Great content. Great content. Great content. Fashion community is wholesome outside of comment sections. I wouldn't say that. There are definitely fashion people in real life, in person, that are horrible people to be around, like the worst of society. But that's not everyone, and I genuinely don't think that's most people. Like, from my experience working in fashion, I would say that 85% of people are wholesome, and then there's a 15% of people that are just the worst examples of human beings on this planet. Like, all kinds of bad, like bitchy for no reason, hate on people for no reason, have beefs with people for no reason. That some of them are even abusers. Some of them we even know, like Alexander Wang, and so on and so forth, photographers and different people like that. So yeah, but I'd say a good 85% is wholesome, to be fair. Are we wholesome people? Yeah, I think the comment section is quite wholesome. I think sometimes the comment section can be a bit harsh, especially on designers, to be fair. That's probably spearheaded by Luke, if I'm gonna be very honest. But you guys are wholesome. You guys are wholesome. I also do like that in the comment section, you guys are not too because I make a lot of jokes and you guys take the jokes, you don't take it too seriously. Because I think there are certain corners of the fashion internet that you're just not even allowed to joke about fashion. They act like fashion is literally, you know, solving the cure for cancer and stuff. There's people that like are just so weird about it, and it's just like, how dare you make a joke about my dad? Like some of these people call like Rick Owens their dad, or like, you know, Demna their dad and stuff. It's really, really odd. Luke said that's just me. At least let me admit it first. Yeah, Luke is the spearheads the toxic behavior. Luke equals the Thanos of fashion roadman chat. Luke adds balance, because I don't, like, as a journalist or just as a person in general, I don't believe in, so many people do this, by the way, and I think it's really bad. I don't believe in like censorship in the sense of censoring people that have different opinions to you, or censoring people that have different opinions to like most. So long as it's not like veering into the realm of literal like homophobia or like sexism or racism, I'm okay with it if someone has like opposing opinions, because you don't ever want to be in a like bubble. You want to see different opinion, different, you know, different opinion. I think as a person, you won't be well developed if you only surround yourself with opinions that are, you know, similar to opinions that you have, or opinions that you agree with. I don't think that's really good for like mental development personally. Um yeah, I find it's kind of like a hot take, but I find that people that are the least intelligent or lack the most self-awareness or just awareness about the world in general tend to be people that like isolate themselves into a group of just opinions that agree with themselves. So they don't even like truly understand how like other people think, or how, why certain things happen or certain people get voted in, because they just could not even fathom the way that someone else thinks. But that's because you only surround yourself with opinions that are specifically what you agree with. I'm really against that, like fundamentally. So yeah, that's why I like balance. I like balance. I think it's a good thing, to be fair. Yeah, censoring and blocking is fake reality. Yeah, facts. Exactly what I was alluding to. Yeah, echo chambers are hella name. Exactly. Exactly that. Um so yeah. Someone said, if I'm in a room and we're all agreeing on more than 5 things, I gotta leave the room. I don't know about 5 things. I think that's a bit small. But I know what you're getting at. I understand the sentiment. I understand the sentiment. So yeah, fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. Also, last but not least, I was gonna end this stream here, but since we're already 2 hours, 40 minutes in, we might as well just keep speed running, keep going. Let's quickly talk about the JW Anderson news. Because, you know, why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? Let me just put that on the screen for you guys. I mean, JW Anderson news is probably the most like like we already knew that was gonna happen. Like we've been talking about this forever. Nothing new there, nothing surprising. Now we're just waiting for him to take over Dior, to be honest. So you know, nothing too crazy there. But you know, let's cover it. Let's cover it. We can cover it, guys. As if it wasn't more obvious who's going to Dior. I mean, yeah, we've been talking about JW Anderson, you know, exiting LOEWE for a while. But I mean, it's interesting because I think that JW Anderson had an amazing run at LOEWE, of course, from everything from the surrealist inspirations that he was doing at a point, and those heels and stuff were, you know, really, really strong and really, really good. They sold really well, like the balloon, but as a heel, or even things like commercially, like the puzzle bag, that was insane. And JW Anderson does make a good bag. I mean, at his own brand, he's famous for things like the Pierce bag, for example. For those of my lads, because obviously you guys might not be so into bags, but I'll show you guys what the LOEWE puzzle bag looks like, just in case you don't know what it looks like. It's one of the most iconic modern LOEWE bags, but this is the LOEWE puzzle bag. This is a mini one. But yeah, this was like one of the most famous LOEWE bags. So the puzzle bag. So he just did so well. Also, what I really loved about JW Anderson's LOEWE, and I've talked about this when I've reviewed a lot of LOEWE shows. You guys can watch back. Literally just type in LOEWE runway review fashion roadman. It'll probably come up. I love his inspirations of art history. I always say this, and I'll say this again. Something I've always loved about JW Anderson's work is the fact that sometimes he references really obscure art, and I learn a lot because in reviewing runway shows, I have to really understand what they are referencing. So if they reference an artist, I need to go learn about the work of that artist first before I do the review, and I learn about things that I didn't really know about. And it's in stark contrast to most designers that reference the most obvious run-of-the-mill artist and art history periods. So that's something I've always appreciated about JW Anderson. He'll take like really obscure books and reference that, or obscure like films. He also is very inspired by film. Obscure films that I've never heard of in my life, and I'd have to literally watch the film to do the review. And they're actually really interesting things. So I think he has an interesting taste just in things in general, in art history, in films, and that kind of shows itself in his LOEWE, and it did show itself in his LOEWE when he was there. Also, thank you so much, by the way, for the super chat. Take this for the after hours, my good sir. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. Okay, JW Anderson is the best British designer in British history. No, that would be Alexander McQueen. That would definitely be Alexander McQueen. I think skill-wise or just designer-wise, if I was to do like, you know, in order, best British designer of all time, Alexander McQueen first, John Galliano second, then it gets really difficult because now there are so many designers that I could put like third, fourth. There's so many. Oh my gosh. There, yeah, I'm stuck on after McQueen and Galliano. I'm just stuck. You can mention names like Worth. I knew people were mentioning Westwood, but the reason why I didn't want to say like Westwood and stuff is because like how far back are we going? And then can we mention people like Worth, like Charles Frederick Worth and stuff like that? Because you know, if we open that kind of worms, it gets really difficult very quickly. So between Worth, between Vivienne Westwood, exactly, fashion starts with Worth, so he counts. That's why I said I knew people would say Vivienne Westwood, but I immediately was like, okay, McQueen, Galliano. Now we've got Worth. We've got all the Savile Row people, and how valid do we put them in this conversation? So we've got the likes of like Oswald Boateng, even Paul Smith, who's very iconic historically. There's so many names that you can start throwing around after those top two, in my opinion. But JW Anderson is definitely like in the mix of those designers for sure. But to me, I definitely think you might disagree with me, and that's fine. It's subjective, but I think the greatest British designer of all time is McQueen, and it's going to take a monumental effort for there to ever be a better British designer than McQueen, in my personal opinion. I think we're going to have a very hard time ever talking about a designer, to me personally, that's better than McQueen. Yeah, even Molyneux, Stella McCartney. Yeah, so like I said, there's just so many. Someone said Kim Jones. I think he's definitely in the mix too. So yeah, it's insane. Can you experts tell me why McQueen is so revered? Oh my god, where do we start? So part of the reason why a lot of, let's say, older couturiers are really respected is because of their actual like design skill, and their design skill showed themselves in different ways. They were also always on the cutting edge of design, right? So you have designers like Schiaparelli that was using materials that at the time were seen as futuristic and incorporating them into her garments. Or you have the likes of Christopher Balenciaga that was creating his own silhouettes. Same thing with McQueen. McQueen did a lot of, and by the way, creating your own silhouette is tough. Like, you have to be good at tailoring, you have to be good at pattern making, you have to be really, really skilled to do that. That's why Yoji is very respected, because the skill that it takes to create your own silhouette in that way is really difficult. Same thing with McQueen. He made his own silhouette of dresses, his own silhouette of trousers. The bumpsters are still iconic. And of course, people think of bumpsters in terms of like the most exaggerated form. But over the years, he did actually work on the bumpster to make it like a viable thing that could be worn, the way it doesn't show that much of your bum crack. And that's actually really hard to do. And obviously, the only reason why McQueen even had the skills to do that is his background, right? The fact that he worked on Savile Row, the different people that he created patterns for. Like, he's a designer. That is literally what McQueen is. And that is the case for, when you think of the most iconic designers, like at least in my opinion, the designers that I think are the most iconic in terms of like design skill are the likes of Madeleine Vianney. You still have people like John Galliano geeking out over techniques that Madeleine Vianney used to use that he's just discovering at his age now. And this is another designer that is supremely skilled, right? So when I think of skill, I think of Alexander McQueen, Madeleine Vianney, Christopher Balenciaga, but there's few of them, like those designers that like are the pinnacle of like just garment construction, tailoring skill. There's very few. So that's why we hold, because McQueen is in that realm of designers. That's why we hold him to that high of a regard. Like, he really is one of those. Like, he's that skilled and he was that good. And there's like so few designers that I can say that about. Like, that you could literally, like, it's so few of them. So yeah, that's why McQueen is so revered. That's literally like, McQueen is literally in the kind of what Luke is saying. He is literally amongst like greatest of all time designers. Like, he is in that realm. And there's very few designers that are in that realm. Yes, McQueen is low-key unfuckwittable. Facts. Yeah. Givenchy was inspired by Balenciaga. Christian Dior used to marvel at what Balenciaga used to do with garments. I mean, just look at fashion history also, the way people used to refer to Balenciaga's work. Like, Chanel, the way she used to talk about Balenciaga's work and his skill. The fact that when he was young, really young, by the way, his like neighbor, the patron, the woman that later became his patron, made him copy a Paul Poiret dress, thinking that he didn't have the skills to copy it because he's just this young kid. How the hell could he copy it? And he just copied it with ease. Like, that is who Christopher Balenciaga was. So yeah, there's few and far between, but he's one of those. Like, Lee Alexander McQueen is one of those ones. Like, he's one of those. So yeah, I hope that helps with why we hold him to that high of a regard. Why McQueen is, put in that, on that level. Nectar Man said, hate to be morbid, but I think the way he passed added to his folklore and irreverence. Yeah, that's a can of worms I don't want to open, but you guys can speak about that in the chat if you want. Yeah, and mind you, Chanel beefed with everyone. She did. Chanel did beef with everyone. She hated everyone too. And this is very true. Dior did call Balenciaga the master of us all. He definitely did. So yeah, but anyway, moving on. Let's talk about J.W. Anderson, guys. I feel like we went on a tangent. We're supposed to be celebrating J.W. Anderson at LOEWE, guys. But reading on, Jonathan Anderson exits LOEWE. Under the designer's tenure, the LVMH-owned Spanish house became one of luxury's hottest fashion brands, which is facts. Also, something I want to do quickly is look at LOEWE's website and see if they started what they normally do, pulling all of the best hits off of the website, because they better keep that stuff on the website because it's really good. And I personally love like what JW Anderson was doing at LOEWE. I hope they keep all of it, like the heels with the balloons and like all that crazy stuff. Let's see, woman. What category do you want to look at? Let's look at shoes first. Shoes. It's got the funky sneakers. I was not really the biggest fan of those. I like more like the heels and stuff. Yeah, here you have the sort of like cartoonist, like pop art looking loafers, which is a very like LOEWE thing to do because surrealism was a big theme during, especially later on, J.W. Anderson's tenure. Yeah, like stuff like this is really cool. These sort of toy mules, I was a big fan of those. Like even this, like these pumps with the knitted fabric, those also did really well financially. The slippers with sort of like a belt design is supposed to be like the belt hoop design, but just actual slippers, they're sandals. Really, really cool. Yeah, J.W. Anderson's fabric innovation was insane. And it was deliberate, obviously, because LOEWE is, their main focus is leather. So one of his focuses was how many different ways can we recontextualize leather? So, you know, they were doing a lot of the leather effect things. They were doing using different types of leather and mixing different textures of leather to give a different effect. So that was also something I found really fun and interesting about his LOEWE. Someone is saying not for the price though. Fair enough. Yeah, I also like the boot shape, like really, really round toe shaped boots. Yeah, I just think a lot of what JW Anderson did at LOEWE was just such a hit. It was so good. And at Dior now, I think the problem with Dior is they haven't really had like a moment on the women's wear side. They've had a moment on the menswear side for sure. They've had, we talked about Kim Jones and his tenure at Dior, the oblique sneakers, the hardware when he was working with Yoon Ahn and Matthew Williams when they were doing the hardware, and the Elix buckle on the bags, and that was really crazy and sold like crazy. Like so much stuff that Kim Jones did at Dior, like the Jordan and Dior collab, all that stuff was selling really well. On the women's side, like Maria Grattaturi brought back like some John Galliano stuff, like the saddle bag. She brought that back. That has been selling really well, but it's not really her design. They need a designer that can come in and really like create new products that really hit in the women's wear. I don't think Maria Grattaturi has been able to do that. Of course, people say that, oh, but she sells well, but it's like, are her designs selling well, or is that just a case of the big machine that is Dior, because it's such a big brand, right? That when you walk into the Dior store, you can buy all the like Dior print stuff, and like that's like the permanent connection stuff that has no real connection to what goes on the runway, right? So that's why I think they need someone to really bring that excitement to Dior, and it's going to sell regardless. Like the permanent collection stuff, like yeah, like the book tote. Like the book tote, that's definitely a thing that was selling. But once again, it doesn't matter what designers there. There'll always be, you know, rich ladies in California that buy, you know, the book totes in the boatloads and stuff like that. So is that about the designer, or is that just a wider marketing machine of Dior? Yes, I always mute to cough, so I'm not coughing loudly on the stream. I don't think it's nice. So yeah. How would you differentiate between her selling well and just the machine based on what's selling? So if you look at what's selling at Dior, it's very much, obviously they have like a sensational fragrance line that sells like crazy on both sides, like women's and men's. But do you see people wearing Maria Grattaturi runaway pieces when women wear Dior, or do you see women wearing permanent collection Dior? When I see women wearing Dior, it's permanent collection stuff. It's the Dior stuff with all over prints. It's the Dior book tote with all over prints. It's the Dior sandals and slippers with horrible monograms. When Kim Jones, when you look at what men were wearing at Dior, it was the stuff that was literally going on the runway. I saw people wearing the oblique sneakers, those ones that look like Converses. I saw people wearing the same sheer like Dior logo shirts that were on the runway at that time. I saw people wearing the crossbody Dior bags. I saw people wearing the, what are they called? Those Dior runner sneakers that were on the runway. So it's kind of like, is there a correlation between what we see on the runway and what people are actually wearing and what is actually selling in droves? I haven't seen that on the women's side compared to the men's side, which would lead me to believe that it's more the machine of Dior rather than Maria herself, you know, actually creating pieces that become hits in the zeitgeist. Like, I'll ask you guys in the chat, there's like 197 people. Can you point to like a certain silhouette that, or like item, like ready to wear piece that Maria Grattaturi has designed that has been a hit, like as a thing, right? And you're not allowed to say book totes because that's permanent collection stuff. That's not necessarily like Maria Grattaturi runway. I'll wait. I'll give you guys like a minute or so to give me like just one like clothing item that's really hit the zeitgeist in Maria Grattaturi's tenure in Dior. Let me see what you guys say. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Actually, you guys are right. That did. So the We Should Be Feminist t-shirts, touche, that was actually a hit. That did capture the cultural zeitgeist. That did. Granted, there was a hot contradiction because the Dior shirt talked about the fact that we should be feminist, but literally like made by exploited women. We've talked about the, you know, the structure of like the infrastructure of Dior and how their factories work and how they use these third-party factories and how they're exploiting workers. So there's a massive contradiction when you're running a massive conglomerate that exploits women all over the place, and then you're pushing a message of women's empowerment. I don't think Dior is the perfect springboard to do that, but she did it anyway. And there was like a contradiction. But that being said, it was a hit though. The We Should Be Feminist t-shirt went triple platinum. Like that did go really well, to be fair. But once again, that's a t-shirt. Okay, someone is saying like the A-line dresses. So she does love an A-line dress, but I don't think it's caught on per se, like her A-line dresses. Someone said the Miss Dior trench coat. I can give you some, yeah, I can concede to that. I don't necessarily think her Miss Dior trench coats have captured the zeitgeist per se, but people do wear them. I see people wearing them more so on Instagram than in real life, but I do see people wearing those. NBC kept Dior in the zeitgeist through a stream of mild dramas that didn't hurt her at all. I'm a huge fan of Dior Beauty as well, by the way. But once again, that has nothing to do with Maria Grattaturi. So yeah, she doesn't design fragrances. I love how she used all those women artists as decor for the stage and ignored it completely to make another 40 A-line dresses with a belt. She does love a shirt dress. She does. She does. She does, to be fair. Nothing about her zeitgeisty. She's just safe and inoffensive and shepherd Dior through a stage of huge global expansion. Yeah, I totally agree with you. But what I'm saying is, like, if they want to grow even more, they need someone that can balance the sales from the permanent collection with other new styles that actually sell more and lead to the sale of like adjacent Dior items, right? They definitely need that. So for sure. Holly says, yes, I'm not arguing against the numbers, but it says a lot about the consumers. Mainstream sales, Rash slash Galliano are true talents, which doesn't sell. We know this. Oh, yeah. True. Facts. That's 100% true, by the way. That's completely true. Luke says, I just don't see how J.W. Anderson's sensibility fits with Dior at all. It's totally different. Is it, though? Is it? I'm not sure. I mean, J.W. Anderson does have more of like a... I don't want to say Demna because it's a bit more classy than what Demna, like the way that he memifies things. But J.W. Anderson does have that like playful, surrealist side to him, and we saw that at LOEWE. I mean, with like tomato bags and all this kind of stuff, right? But Dior is a bit more serious than that. I think Dior is a bit less playful than LOEWE, so he can't be as playful at Dior. Considering the way he is at LOEWE. I think Dior is a bit more serious. But I think he can do that though. I think he can definitely do that. I don't think that all he can do is the, surrealist playful thing. I think there's more in his locker. We've seen through his JW Anderson eponymous label, he's been able to do so many different silhouettes over the years. So yeah. He will be overworked. I don't think he's going to be any more overworked than he was before, because doing Dior and JW Anderson, I mean, before he would be doing LOEWE and JW Anderson, it's kind of like similar workload. Of course, there'll be slightly more work at Dior, slightly more collections, but I'm sure he can handle it. But designers are just, at this point, are just always overworked at this point. If you're not only at one brand, you're definitely overworked, for sure. So yeah. Let me see what else you guys are saying in the chat. Dior lip gloss slaps. Yeah, I just love Dior fragrances so much. I really, really love Dior fragrances. I don't think they would allow him to be extremely playful. They would let him be a little, but not completely. Yeah, I guess that's alluding to what I was saying earlier, in the sense that LOEWE is a bit more playful and it allows for more playfulness than Dior, which is, not as playful, and it's not, kind of what Luke is saying, it's not intellectual. Whereas JW Anderson is very intellectual with the way he designs. So it's slightly different. I can see that, but I think he can design a nice dress. Give JW Anderson some credit. I think he can design a fun and nice dress. He hasn't done much of that at LOEWE. It's more, he designs fun dresses more so than just like the perfect, dress that sculpts. He's not doing the Alaya thing. That's never been his MO. But he will have to lean more towards that for Dior, for sure. It's funny how we're having this conversation. He's not even been announced at Dior, but I'm just making the assumption that he's going there, to be honest. So yeah. But let's read the article, guys. Let's see what Vogue Business has to say. After an 11-year run, Jonathan Anderson is leaving LOEWE. The house said on Monday it's experienced exceptional growth under his direction, and according to Chief Executive Officer Pascal Lepoiver, has risen to new heights with international recognition. While reflecting on the last 11 years, I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by people with the imagination, the skills, the tenacity, and the resourcefulness to find a way to say yes to all my wildly ambitious ideas, Anderson said in a statement. While my chapter draws to a close, LOEWE's story will continue for many years to come, and I will look on with pride, watching it continue to grow, the amazing Spanish brand I once called home. So let's just skip all these, arbitrary statements from the execs. Oh, we always thought he would be great, and he had a great tenure. Yeah. Um, the announcement comes after LOEWE's co-ed presentation took place on the 10th of March. If LOEWE's show was sorely missed in Paris this season, the lasting impression of walking through this exhibition was of just how much fun Anderson has had, wrote Sarah Moa. Oh my god, I'm coughing a lot. Let me actually put that JW that LOEWE thing on the screen because it's quite interesting. It was kind of like a best hits. It was kind of just reminding you of everything, every cool thing that JW Anderson has done at LOEWE, which is kind of cool in a way, knowing fully well that he was leaving. But let me just show you guys. Give me 1 second. The runway, LOEWE. Actually, instead of going on Vogue Runway, I think it'll be better to go on Instagram because they'll probably have a lot more of the I was like, let's see what the description was. A scrapbook of ideas, things old and new that are gathered at random to be preserved as memories or to serve as inspiration. Devising the Fall Winter 25 collection, inspired by these ideas, unveiled at the Hotel de Maisons in Paris, Jonathan Anderson plays on LOEWE codes and tropes such as trompe-l'oeil, distorted scales and volumes, all filtered through art and artisanal craft, which led to a collaboration with the Joseph and Annie Albers Foundation, which is essentially a lot of what he did at LOEWE, sort of playing with volume. He does that all the time at LOEWE, also at his eponymous label too. The boots were something that people are talking about a lot, distorted scales and volumes. And like he said, all filtered through art and artisanal craft, which is his stick. I spoke to it earlier that he's inspired by very obscure, artists and art periods and films and stuff. And that's what I find the most interesting about his work. So I did kind of like it in a way. Even the tomato, once again, which was an iconic, JW Anderson pop culture moment. So I thought it was really cool. I thought it was fun. Here we have the surrealism once again, which was a key theme in his LOEWE. The mushrooms, typical JW Anderson LOEWE. Typical. But reading on. At LOEWE's standout show during Paris Fashion Week's last September, Anderson received a standing ovation from many of his peers. Sarah Burton, Pieter Mulier, Adrian Appiah-Laza, Nicolas Di Felice, and Chris Van Ash all attended, as well as Delphine Arnault and actors Daniel Craig, Josh O'Connor, Greta Lee, Io Debris, and Rob Lowe. So, quick side note, because they mentioned Nicolas Di Felice. So, funny enough, I've seen many names. This is complete side note, by the way. I've seen many names, be thrown around about who's going to Balenciaga. I think, was it Luke that said in the chat that it's mainly going to be like Daniel Roseby or Pieter Mulier? Personally, I think that Nicolas Di Felice, I would love if he went to Balenciaga, because I have really enjoyed his courage. Like, I'm such a fan of what he's been doing at Courage. Obviously, I think he had like the same like Jean-Paul Gaultier like guest collection also. But his Courage to me has really been flying under the radar, and I think he could do a sensational job at Balenciaga, especially like the sculptural shapes. That like he could just really do that at Balenciaga. But I don't know if he's like, a big enough name for Balenciaga, like what they're looking for. But as a journalist, as a critic, I'm a fan of his work. So when people are talking about names, like throwing names in the hat for Balenciaga, he was definitely someone that I was like, oh, he would be a really good fit. But yeah, moving on. That was just kind of quick side note, because I'm like, every time I see Nicolas Di Felice's name, I'm like, yeah, he should go to Balenciaga. But anyway, the set for the show featured a sculpture by Tracy Yemen, a pole with a bird perched on top. According to the press release, the bird is caught in a moment of pause. She encourages us to imagine imminent flight and ultimately its freedom. The Northern Irish designer was appointed creative director of LVMH owned Spanish luxury house in September 2013. This is where I start to feel old. I'm like, oh my God, JW Anderson has been at LOEWE for that long. That's crazy. That's actually insane. I feel old. I literally remember when he was announced. Like, that's actually insane. I'm like, I'm getting old. This is when I remember I'm actually pushing 30. When they're like, yes, he's been at the brand for like 14 years. I'm like, no way. No way. But reading on, because I was just talking about like his background. On this channel, you guys would know about his background. Okay, they're talking about the history of LOEWE. Also, not to, completely keep promoting Understitch, but Understitch has a sensational video on LOEWE. So LOEWE is, LOEWE is, a brand with a very interesting and complicated history, and Understitch really delved deep and broke it down. So if you want to learn about the history of LOEWE, Understitch has a sensational video about that. So definitely check that out if you're curious about. Tayan said, don't make me laugh, you getting old. Obviously, old is a state of mind, Diane. It's like it's a state of mind, but obviously it just makes me realize that I'm no longer the 18-year-old that I once was, when I'm like, oh my God, JW Anderson has been at LOEWE for that long. Oh my gosh. Like, that's crazy. That's so crazy. I feel like I'll always be a young soul, even when I'm like, 50, 60, 70, 80. I feel like I'll be a young soul. So yeah. Not Ayo aging himself. It is what it is. But let's read some of the figures. Under Anderson's tenure, sales went from 230 million euros in 2014 to 1.07 billion in 2024, according to Morgan Stanley estimates. Ready-to-wear took off. Anderson's collections were experimental, clean, but at the same time made for daily life. Meanwhile, leather goods went from strength to strength. He notably created in 2015, which I talked about earlier, the puzzle bag, which became a staple. He kept craftsmanship at the center and created the LOEWE Foundation Craft Prize in 2016 to support and give visibility to vanishing crafts, which, once again, this is JW Anderson's stick once again. And I'm happy that he brought it to LOEWE at his eponymous label. Something that he's known for doing is highlighting certain craftspeople, especially if it's like a craft that is, a dying breed. Very recently, and I talked about this very recently, but there was that collection where he was, let me see if I can get it on the screen for you guys. Do you guys remember this collection, right? This collaboration where he collaborated with the potters, the historic potters that used to make like Cornish ware, because obviously it's like a very famous like Cornwall style of pottery that was kind of a dying breed, and he almost made it like fashionable for a while, and like a lot of fashion people are like all of a sudden really interested in Cornish ware and buying that kind of pottery and stuff, and he was really highlighting the different potters that make this stuff. So that's something I've always appreciated from JW Anderson, is this ability to highlight craftspeople and to also make sure that people are aware of the people that make these things and also give them some visibility and some publicity. So that's something that I'm also a big fan of when he does it. Shout out to Cornwall, my homeland. Yeah, so this was famous. I reviewed the Runaway show when it happened. This was like a very, very famous collaboration that he did. He also had a store takeover where like these big teapots were at the window and stuff. But I digress. But yeah, they're talking about him being a 360-degree designer with a precise vision for brand building. LOEWE campaigns like the one starring Maggie Smith, Jamie Dornan, and Daniel Craig always got people talking, which is true. That famous LOEWE campaign, was that JW Anderson era? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The LOEWE. Do you guys remember that? Was that? I think that was JW Anderson era. That's so iconic though. That's such an iconic, so iconic. So iconic. So yeah, he is a 360 designer, all the way from the campaigns to the leather goods to the accessories to the ready to wear to the fun, cultural zeitgeist moments. I think JW Anderson at LOEWE had all of it, and I'm looking forward to what he does next. Probably Dior. We'll just have to see kind of where he goes with that, to be honest. Let's see. I think Galliano will never go back to his own brand. If he could, he would have done it back then. I think rather than going to Margiela, he would go back to his own brand. Fair enough. But I want to see what the future holds for him. We'll see. We shall see. But on that note, guys, I'm coughing away, so let me cough off stream. Thank you very much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next stream. Thank you so much for